communicable diseases of ICMR and was active in handling the Nipah virus outbreak and coronavirus pandemic. When we fought the two waves of COVID, Sir was the person who was guiding us every moment. And because of his guidance and updated ICMR guidelines, we could successfully manage two big waves of COVID-19 pandemic. And we could also manage further the third and fourth wave. Sir has been awarded with the Padma Shri, which is the fourth highest civilian award in India for his service and research in AIDS. He was also the director in charge of the National AIDS Research Institute. And in 2018, he was appointed as head of the Epidemiology and Communicable Disease Wing of Indian Council of Medical Research. Here we have Sir with us to take us through his journey as a doctor to the stature he is today. Sir, I welcome you for this conference. Thank you very much for coming. I would like you to deliver your talk, sir.
Am I audible? Yeah, am I audible at the back?
Is this better? Is sir audible to all of you? Quiet, please.
No, am I audible? Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I was asked to speak on my reflections in my journey of research in the past and the success and missed opportunities. Now let me first put up a disclaimer that whenever you tend to hear such talks, they can border towards narcissism. They can perhaps be a reflection which may invite a comment that yes, Satya gaya. But I'm not an eye specialist. This is the first time I'm speaking like this on PowerPoints. Otherwise, people used to interview in other conferences. So please take everything with pinch of salt when you think about it. But at the same time, I'm telling you that I'm not going to hide anything. Now, if you actually try to go down the memory line and try to think, this was yesterday night was the first time I was reflecting so much on how my journey was. So essentially, this is going to be my best effort, where I have also got to minimize my recall bias. Most of you must be knowing about recall bias. No, we don't remember things of the past, but we need to understand that. Now, this is my early part of my journey. My father was a part of a revenue service. He used to be transferred every 2 or 3 years. I was learning in Marathwada, all Jilla Parishad high schools. It used to be Marathi medium. And then I still remember what changed me more. In 9th standard, in a particular year, my father was transferred 3 times. The result was, when I went for a higher mathematics quarterly paper, I got 10 out of 100. And then I came home, I still remember, I was crying and I came home and showed my mother, these are the marks that I have got. Her first response was, if you feel you should drop higher mathematics, then in those cases, in Marathi, they used to say, Bangra Ghal. You have to learn, you have to struggle. And that's how my journey started. And perhaps it was a good thing to happen in early part of my schooling career. But one of the things that happen when you are part of Marathi medium is communication in English becomes a major challenge because we didn't know how to speak in English as such. Then subsequently, for pre-professional, I went to Lal Bahadur Shastri College in Dharmabad, which was the only college for science studies in that particular taluka. Now, I was underage because when I appeared for SSC, my age was 13 years, 6 months. And then when I passed pre-professional, I was underage. So I had to wait for 1 year. Then I did not know what I would do. So my father was transferred to Pune. So I joined Ferguson College. No, without telling my friends that I was underage and I was going to finally join medical career. But that was the only way I could socialize. And at that time, if you ask me, I remember at the time, they used to speak in English all the time. And I used to decide I am going to communicate with them in English. I also understand good grammatical English per se. They used to speak so fast that when I used to think of what should be my response, by the time I could utter those words, that part of conversation would always be over. So I developed all kinds of issues with one's own competencies that one perceives. Then for first MBBS, I joined SRTR Medical College in Ambezogai. And after first MBBS, got transferred to Government Medical College in Aurangabad. And now knowing that the communication skills that I had, the fear of English, one thing which I must say, I was always a backbencher because I used to find it difficult to communicate. So I used to say, why should I sit in the front rows? I can't answer anything. And for whatever reasons, one habit that I had, I never adopted shortcuts. No, those kinds of books which were written by Indian authors, not that they are bad, but they don't explain much. If I don't understand, I can't remember. So I used to read standard textbooks, whether it is, if I was to give an example, Harrison, I would never go to even Davidson, leave apart Golwala and those kinds of things. The result was, if you sit in the front benches, when the professor used to ask a question, what are the 5 causes of this? I would never know. Golwala used to have that. But Harrison never said, what are the 5 causes? So essentially, I remained as a backbencher. At that time, when I'm talking of a period sometime around 1981, we had very few PG seats as such. And there was almost no scope to go for PG in other medical colleges. So wherever you have done, you have to stay there. What was also difficult was my batch had a result for final MBBS where 27 students passed out of 100. Unheard of in today's phenomenon. But essentially, what would it mean? Some people will feel he must get a postgraduate degree entry into postgraduate degree program. But did this happen? No, it did not, because the number of seats used to be so small that I had no choice but to do DCH alone. No, I did DCH, and it was out of sheer ego, to be really honest, because my professor for medicine was Dr. R.B. Bhagwat, who recently passed away. No, he sent a feeler that if you join MD medicine, I'll give you a pure PG seat. Pure PG seat essentially meant that I don't receive stipend, which I didn't want to risk because that was not something which I wanted to do. But I did DCH. But did it pay really well in my life per se? Perhaps it did. No, I still recall my first day as a resident in pediatrics. On the first day, I diagnosed dextrocardia situs inversus in a child, in a girl who was 7 years old. Now, this girl used to get repeatedly admitted in the hospital for malaria, so-called suspected malaria. And when I diagnosed that case and sent it to my SR, the first thing that happened was he shouted at me and he said, please show me your stetho. I said, why? No, he said, maybe you are using adult stethoscope and not pediatric one, so you are finding that this is dextrocardia. And do you think in our college, everybody has been making a mistake that the child actually has malaria, but it turns out eventually that you are claiming it could be hepatomegaly. No, you were actually looking at hepatomegaly. Fortunately for me, I received firing that day from everybody, including unit in charge. But I was lucky. No, when the X-ray was taken and it was shown the next day, it was dextrocardiacitis inversus. And then the attitude was different. So I used to pick abnormalities well. It was I had a case series of cleidocranial dysostosis. And then people started calling me that he is a syndrome man. No, there is a big book in pediatrics of syndromes, where you see faces and things like that. And as I said, I always believed in looking at standard books that tend to guide you better. And that book was also seen by me from my seniors earlier. The result was I became famous only as a syndrome man while I was doing this post-graduation. After completing DCH, Professor Inge was my HOD. No, he himself suggested that either you join as a researcher in my department because I have got an offer that I should become visiting professor for Bristol University, so we will do research here. I was not very sure because he is still alive. He is in Pune. He used to, they were living in quarter, and for first 15 days of the month, he used to come on a scooter. Quarters were close by. But after 15 days, he could not have it offered. He used to come walking to the medical college. So I realized, there must be a lot of stress, though this gentleman is known all over. He did his MD pediatrics from AIMS. He was actually his other peers then was Meherban Singh and those kinds of people. He was a big man. So I said maybe he may not stay with the government at all. He said, then in that case, you work with me, handle inpatients, I will handle outpatients because I am older now. This, when he offered, I said, sir, there is one thing which we must remember. There is a Guru Shishya kind of a relationship. The day we will become partners in financial issues, this relationship will be broken one day or the other. This I will never compromise at all. Then he suggested, I have seen you for last 2 years. Please go and go for research. Your aptitude is for research. You go and join National Institute of Nutrition in Hyderabad. Now, please remember, National Institute in Hyderabad, I had never seen that before. But it was just that I heard about a lot of people who have been working in that area. In the hindsight, if I think that I did DCH, which makes you langda, in terms of competition. You have to compete with people who have postgraduate degrees, so you almost don't have any future. But if I would have done MD, perhaps MD medicine or even pediatrics in those days, I would have become only a practitioner. Maybe I would have been renowned practitioner in a small geographic area. And then perhaps I would have done a lot of money. But that was not to be. That was a journey which perhaps ensured that I have added one more handicap in my life and I would move around with that handicap so that I remain focused. When I joined NIN, it was an accidental thing. My grandfather in Hyderabad was sick. So I had gone to see him. And at that juncture, I just visited NIN. And there was an advertisement there. And when I saw the advertisement, I remembered what Professor Inge had told. I applied, I got a job. But look at the paradox. That job was of assistant research officer. No, far below dignity for any medical professional per se. But I did not bother. The reason was, if you start reading even malnutrition anywhere, even now in the textbooks, NIN was one of the 3 global research institutes, a very renowned kind of an institute. You look at their legacy. You had Dr. Gopalan as a giant, Dr. Srikantaya, Dr. Kamala Krishnaswamy, food and toxicology lady, Vinodini Reddy, a vitamin A lady. You read any kind of reference, you will find Vinodini Reddy. Then I joined NNMD. They posted me as in charge for Maharashtra State in National Nutrition Monitoring Bureau. The truth is, this is how much of time do we have? When did we start? Any so that I can pace it appropriately. No, but you can always tell me that it is over. No, I used to take pride in those days. The reason was simple. We were asked to do nutritional status assessment among all tribals in Maharashtra and one in Madhya Gond community, because Madhya Gond was a primitive tribe, and in that primitive tribe, the growth rate was falling. So planning the mission, which used to rely on our data, they gave a specific job to find out why the growth rates are low. But then you have to remember that this Madhya Gond survey used to take place in Gadchiroli, Bhamragarh zone. These were Naxalite areas. No. Even I had to face Naxalites then, because that was a time when the police had some certain encounters with Naxalites, and that led to all kinds of problems then. But I was lucky. Did that affect me anyway? No, it enhanced my resolve to try and make difference, because those were really poor people. We had to do something to them. But there were certain issues. This was a temporary job. And in 1988, we received a termination letter from them. And then I felt that I was less utilized. So I decided that I would switch the job. When I did that, I had 4 options. One was joining CARE. No, CARE is Cooperative for American Relief Everywhere. No, this is an American NGO. And they said you need Maharashtra. But I didn't want to do that because I asked a question that, does this mean in future I can become head of your India division? They said, we still haven't done that. But the person who came to interview came from New York for the whole thing. But when he said that, I said, then I don't want to join. Then I was to become medical advisor WACHAT, which I decided I would not, because my strength was nutrition. They had nutritional projects, nutritional supplements which they were producing. Then there was a post for research officer, National Institute of Virology, Pune. I couldn't succeed in getting that post. And then I went for research officer, Institute of Immunohematology. This is also ICMR network institute. And there I was selected, and unfortunately, when I went to see my director, he said, please write a project in 7 days for research work. You will work on sickle cell disease. And I was extremely upset because sickle cell disease was not seen so often in Aurangabad, Marathwada zone. And therefore I was less comfortable. But at the same time, there was a MS general surgery person who had also joined as research officer. No, he was offered to work on thalassemia. And thalassemia for me was very natural. But then I said, how do you say no to him? Take it as a challenge, move and try to do something in sickle cell disease. Mumbai is classically an ocean of professionals. No? You are coming from Marathwada. You don't have good credentials to actually go in and fight it out. On top of it, I was only a DCH person. When, if you actually look at the giants that used to be there, this was on the 13th floor of KEM hospital. On a 7th floor, if I recall correctly, it was Dr. B.C. Mehta, one of the most renowned hematologists of the country. You had M.B. Agarwal to compete with, Sunil Bichele, who was a GMC person, but then subsequently he went to Bombay. And I was the only medical scientist. The surgeon who had joined was least interested. He had come for passing time. There was no clinical work. And that hurts you a lot. Because the entire institute was lab-based per se. What I did then, since Bombay didn't have sickle cell patients, I established 2 clinics, one in Valsad in Gujarat and one in Nagpur. for sickle cell disease work. And then when I did that, I had once gone to Valsad for doing work. No, Valsad was community-based cohort that I was trying to follow. No, I went there. At that time, Dr. Italia, who used to be my local, he was a pathologist. He was a local person who used to help us out. Now, what he did was, he said, when I returned back in the evening, he said, अरे जाके ना आज एक पेशेंट शाम को देख के आ। मैं क्या देखना है? तो एड्स का पेशेंट है। तो फिर मैं क्या देखूं? बोले नहीं, आपने तो देखना है। अरे उसको गांव में से पूरा बाहर निकाले हैं। आई होप पीपल अंडरस्टैंड हिंदी, एवरीबडी। बाहर निकाले हैं, अभी क्या करना है? तो मैंने उसको हाँ बोला है, मेरे यहाँ से वो पॉजिटिव आया है, उसको पूरे गांव में उसके ऊपर, आई वोंट टेल द नेम ऑफ द विलेज, वो गांव में उसको ऑस्ट्रेसाइज किया है। तो अब उसने बोला, तो देन आई वेंट, उसकी कार थी, ही वाज अ रिच मैन, वो गांव को लेके गई, एंड दैट वाज माय फर्स्ट एक्सपोजर टू एड्स। हाउ डिड इट हैपन? इट वाज वेरी स्केरी, because when I went to his house, we were sitting across on a dining table. I don't know why they had dining table right in the first room. This is a story which almost everybody who we trained in HIV initially, they actually knew. I used to tell them this story. Then I still distinctly remember that fellow came from the bedroom. His wife came out from the kitchen. And then when he was sitting, for him, I was the first outsider who was willing to speak with him. So he was speaking with me in a very animated manner. And then the saliva of that person used to fall on my face. And I was so scared because J. Levy, one of the big researchers then in HIV, he had written a paper which was published 7 days back, where they had written that you can isolate HIV from every body fluid. It was those days. This is a story of 1989. And I panicked so much. His wife came and she said, you have come in the evening. Gujarati sanskar aise hote hain ki aapko khana khilana padega. At that time, the shower is on. And she's talking of eating. I was scared. I said, nahi, main kha ke aaya hu, which was wrong. No, it was not the truth. But then he said, she said, फिर तो मैं बोला नहीं, आप ऐसे करिए, चाय लेके आइए. The hope inside was, the only fact, I was not from HIV division, so for me, I didn't know anything beyond general logic. No, they used to say if you boil anything, HIV dies. So I said, fine, let me let me go ahead and have tea. But the shower of saliva was so much, it was occurring so often that my legs, they started shaking. It was violent shaking of my legs to a tune that I was worried when his wife comes with the cup of tea, she will also see that my legs are shaking. So I held my legs by my own hands to try and see that nobody else comes to know about it. This lady, when she walked out from the kitchen with cup of tea, she was smiling. And then suddenly there was a thought that came to my mind, that if this lady, who's a non-medical person, who perhaps stays in the same bedroom, is in contact with the patient almost for 24 hours, we don't know, they must still be continuing sexual activity. We still don't have, I haven't asked that part to him. If she can smile, then shame on you. You are at least a medical person. You should not do that. And then the shaking stopped. And that was the point where I actually owe everything to her for my entry into the field of HIV completely. What was worse? No, I came back to Bombay and you have to report to your director. When I told my director that I had seen such and such AIDS case also, his first response was Dr. Apte. No, Dr. Apte said, Acha, then do you want to work in the field of HIV? I said, no problem. When I said no problem, his first response was, go back home, talk to your wife, and then report tomorrow. I said, why should I ask my wife? My wife is a homemaker. No, I do not discuss my professional decisions with her unless it involves her altogether. He said, I am far older than you. When he showed, no, he was bald. No, look at me. No, I'm telling you, you should go home and talk to your wife. So I went and spoke, no, to my wife. My brother was also there at that day in my home. So he had come from Pune. So when I spoke with her, what she said was simple. No, the first question was, my brother said, why have you fought with anybody? I said, no. He said, you are a pediatrics person. Why do you want to work in HIV? So I said, if everybody keeps on saying, this is not my business, then who is going to work for them? So he said, Acha, next time onwards, no, when I come to your house, I'll bring my own razor. I will not share razor here, or all the things that you need to bring to your house, perhaps we'll be using separately. And my wife, she said, please give me some time to think about it. That time, as I said, I was telling sir that my daughter, who is also VMMC student, no, she was there at that juncture. No, so she said, let her sleep. I said, okay, let us discuss after that. We started discussing. And then she said, give me 1 day's time. I couldn't understand anything. Why she is taking such a long time? But I didn't want to go against her. Then the next day, when I asked her, she said, you can work. That was a scary thing for me. Because I said, is it that it is power relationship of a male and a female, a woman who is not earning and the male is earning, so earning member, and therefore she is saying yes? So I asked her a reason, why? Why are you saying yes? Then she told me one thing. Please remember one thing, that if there is a fire in this house, I used to live on 7th floor. The moment you will detect the fire, you will just start running towards the lift, because you want to escape. And then when you reach the lift, you will perhaps realize, you have your wife, Gauri, my daughter's name, she is still in the house. Now I have to go and pick them up first. So I will return back. She said, do you know why? This is a typical self-preservation instinct that each one of us has. No, and if we have self-preservation instinct, which is far superior than other responses that you would have for others, then who am I to question? You are a medical person, you understand the risks, and you should go ahead and do that. Then I told her only one thing, that this is fine to listen to, but we still don't know how HIV is transmitted. Not enough was known then. If ever I acquire, I need an assurance from you. If ever I acquire HIV infection anytime in my life, you should not question on moral grounds to me. No, it is possible. I don't understand. I might get it. She just laughed and went away. And my second woman who influenced entry in HIV in a strong way, perhaps was my own wife at that juncture. I became the 4th clinician in Bombay in those days. There were only 3 clinicians who were willing to even touch or speak with an HIV infected individual in Bombay. This is no exaggeration. This is time around 1989. One was Dr. Gilada, the second was Dr. Maniar, and third was Dr. Sapre. I was the 4th one. And within a short span of time, I established a cohort of 73 patients in HIV. Those days were different, no? Those days, the clients those who used to come for testing were partners of film stars, no? It was a different kind of a world in Bombay at that juncture. And then you had to ensure that you retain your cohort really well. No, mm, that that projected me very strongly at a national level because I was one who had this particular cohort. And at the same time, simultaneously, I was establishing sickle cell disease cohort. One was hospital-based cohort, and the other one was a community-based cohort. And my first talk that I had to give, imagine somebody who has come from my background like mine. I was to give in front of Bombay Hematology Group, which had these stalwarts that I talked about. And it was, they appreciated it so much. It gave me a lot of confidence on what I'm doing because there was nobody otherwise to supervise you on sickle cell disease at that juncture. Subsequently, Dr. B.C. Carr, who is very well known, read about sickle cell disease, you will find that he had collaboration with Dr. Sargent, who is known as a world authority on sickle cell disease. He had the largest cohort, large number of publications coming from Burla. He liked my talk so much on the cohort that I had developed and some research outputs that he suggested I will get you transferred. I want to hand over this particular large cohort that I have to you. You will get a promotion because your additional director general was junior to me. I can just tell him to promote you and shift. But I went against because I was to prefer HIV plus sickle cell disease combo. No, I said I won't be able to do that if I go to Burla. 1990, my first presentation in World Congress on AIDS that was taking place in Bombay was highly appreciated, where I had developed a model to say where would this HIV spread. And now this is no exaggeration. As I said, I'm not a specialist, but this is because your people said you should tell how things unfolded so that others feel motivated to join in. One of the things that had happened was there was a Time magazine reporter. And after my presentation, she said, it is of such a great utility. I would like to interview you and put it in Time magazine. Now just imagine, I was hardly around 30 or so. No, maybe even lesser, I don't know. No, and somebody saying Time magazine and I would put your photograph there and interview also. So I went and asked Dr. Apte. One major learning that took place that day. When I asked him, should I give this interview? Because he is the boss. When I asked him, his first response was, you can give, it is up to you to decide. But please remember, once people will see that you have come in Time magazine, it will be appreciated for a short period of time. But thereafter, everybody will ensure that they have to pull the legs and ensure that I don't grow at all. What you want to choose, you do. So I thought his wisdom was far stronger. I refused the interview because I kept one thing in my mind, no shortcuts, look at the long-term thing. And short publicity doesn't make much difference. In 1991, there was an orphan who was HIV infected, who turned out to be HIV positive. And the child was admitted in CWC, Andheri. It was an orphanage. And there was a chaos because nobody wanted to touch that baby. And the baby was hardly one and a half months old child. So Dr. Sarunke, you must have heard of recent even in COVID in Maharashtra. So he was running the AIDS cell. He also came from government medical college. So he said, will you go and handle the situation? I did. I did it effectively, had a big session with everybody in that orphanage. But thereafter, I realized you cannot intervene only at one side. Let us try to prevent it. So Indian Association of Promotion of Adoption, IAPA people, they came and they said, let's do it for all orphanages across. I did it with a lady who had actually been handling a HIV infected child in her household. You know, and she was a lay person, but it was such a powerful effort that in Bombay, nothing ever happened after 1991 in orphanages. That was one of my first success stories that occurred then. Simultaneously, there was first, interaction with men having sex with men, gay people and sex workers. I come from an orthodox background. I had never seen what is a red light area. When I went to Kamathipura, I was shocked. Kamathipura used to, those days, there used to be 1.5 lakh people, sex workers, who used to stay in Kamathipura in those days. And then I saw their quality of life. One of the things which I realized is they are also equal human beings. And when I put quotes, it is also to tell me that that time I was considering them as they and not only equal to me as every human being. But I had to change within. I decided that I would also make efforts to empower these women. And Dr. Vijay Thakur, one of my early compatriots, and we made every effort in India. And this was not an official effort. Every Saturday, Sunday, we used to travel in Maharashtra and Karnataka. We tried to develop a community-led targeted intervention. We wanted to see that we don't remain gatekeepers. No? Even those who are illiterate sex workers, they should lead their own intervention and not us. Because then, gatekeepers benefit and they always try to deprive these women of their rights. It succeeded for quite some time. We were very happy. But then BMGF came. Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation put in so much of money in such interventions that we could not fight with money, money power, and we lost it. One of the PLHA leaders, first person who was found to be HIV infected was Dominic D'Souza. His case had become very, we had received a lot of media publicity. The reason was very simple. This fellow was found as positive, and in Goa, they used an act and arrested that individual. Dr. Gilada and Anand Grover, they came together and tried to ensure that he was released from the prison. Then we supported him and established what is called as Positive People's NGO. And at that point in time, after some time, he was the only voice of people who are infected in India, even internationally. And he was a very good communicator. So what happened was he contracted, those days he had advanced disease. So he contracted Pneumocystis carinii pneumonia, as it was known before. And we wanted to see that in the struggle again for AIDS, we don't lose him, because he was also a strong force. So in those days, there used to be pentamidine was an injection, and it was not aerosols. They were not available in India. They were available in Australia. We tried to get those for this patient, and we shifted Dominic to Bombay. It was a very large large private hospital. And when we went to the hospital, they said, we are not against you. No, we will allow you, you can take care of your own patient here, but none of the staff members would come there. Now, if you recall, in PCP, you have breathlessness. No, when you have breathlessness, we were not people who were providing quality care in a patient who is admitted in the hospital. No, the result was there used to be a humidified air which used to smell different. And all of us used to get worried whether you will acquire the same infection from Dominic per se. Dominic died. And when he died, he had written a will where he said, I want to be cremated, despite being a Christian. We tried our level best. So we called everybody who were working in HIV in Bombay then, but not more than 4 people could come. They did not want to come. And that was one time when we realized that working in HIV can be extremely difficult. You know. And if those four people who were there, we told each other that if any one of us dies, we will make every effort to give khanda, जो बोलते हैं ना, खंदा देने के लिए चार लोग तो हमने कैसे भी लाना है. And we should have that bond remaining there with you all the time. Simultaneously, what was happening was we were invited by ethicist groups in Bombay. They are from Catholic churches. जल्दी करूं क्या? नहीं, बात का सेशन कितने बजे है? अभी तो 1992 को आया है. Then what happened? The ethicists wanted to discuss, because we were a small number of people in the field of HIV. They wanted to discuss implications of condom use, the way we were promoting, because Catholic Christians, they don't allow you to speak on those issues. Then when they called there, at that time, they were all very senior people in white robes, those who were ethicists, and they started discussing. There was an animated discussion. But in the end, when the fights started occurring, I went on the mic and I started discussing. I tried to tell them that please don't treat this particular use of condom as a contraception. But think about it, contraception may be something which is not allowed in Christianity, but think of it as an anti-infective measure. And that's how, I managed to sell that idea well. Then Father Pimenta, who actually was even one of the candidates for Pope's post some time back, Father Pimenta said, this is the only Hindu we will allow to speak on sexuality in our area. HIV is an important issue. We have to protect everybody. And then I was told to start talking on sexuality, STDs, and HIV in Catholic schools. They were the best schools that we had in Bombay. The result was that experience was dramatic. This was also not allowed in official work because I was a researcher. So I used to go every Saturday, Sunday to Bombay and try to train the parents, their children. After that, the impact was the government of India recognized that if this person can do this kind of task without inviting any social pressure, then we should start family life education, a course for school children. And that time, one of the secretaries, if you may recall, our chief election commissioner used to be Ansari, who retired from there. He was in human resource division. So what he said was, you develop similar program for college-going students, which was called as University Teachers Aids. And those two programs were perhaps one of my major kind of contributions on this particular issue per se. In 1992, something went wrong. We were to actually decide how to do sentinel surveillance of HIV in India. The meeting was taking place in Calcutta, and WHO's group had come, James Chin, one of the kings in the field those days, and Paul Sato was another one. And we were having all kinds of brainstorming, how to do it, and the scientific design part. Suddenly, my additional DG came during lunchtime, and he said, Acha, I have heard that your father stays in Pune. I said, yes. So I am transferring you to Pune. I said, why? He said, I have established National AIDS Research Institute in Pune. I said, I have never heard of this institute. He said, I laid the foundation stone yesterday before coming to Calcutta. And I have decided all those who are working in the field of HIV in different ICMR institutions will be pooled in NARI. And I didn't, no, I never wanted to go to Pune. The reason was Pune was known as Marathi Sanskruti's Maherghar. No? I said, how HIV will thrive there? HIV will not. See, if you are in Bombay, you have 1.5 lakh sex workers. No? So your suddenly patient base becomes too stronger in terms of number. But I tried avoiding. Finally, I had to succumb to the pressure that came, and I had to go there. Was that a good thing to happen? Yes. It was good because that was a time when people with whom we had, as I said, small clan in HIV. People with whom we were also interacting were involved in bovine HIV vaccine trial. Something which was a dubious activity. If I would have been there, without knowing, I would have become a part of it, and perhaps you would have looked at me as a criminal by now. No, not a good thing to happen. This was the first reports that we generated. As I said, we never believed Pune would have such a bad HIV scenario. You look at female sex workers, the prevalence rate in Pune then was 56%, close to 56%. You look at male STD patients, it was around 20%. Partners of STD patient, 14%. And if you look at HIV incidence, that is rate of occurrence of new infection in the community, you will find that we had the highest rate in the world at that juncture from any city reported. And that was something which led to development of far more studies at that from the same clinic, the Gadikhana clinic where I used to work. When I joined NARI first day they told me that you have to go to BJ and there is a skin department and we have to test all those patients of STDs, so you collect the blood. And I was shocked because in Institute of Immunohematology, we were never asked to do phlebotomy. No? And they used to Becton Dickinson needles, no? Vacutainous, which were not seen otherwise in those days. When I went there, the first thing that happens is I get a needle stick injury. And unfortunately, the patient was having phagedenic chancroid. I don't know, you will not understand. Acute phagedenic chancroid is almost a pakka sign that the person could have had been HIV infected, and which was known at that juncture. I was scared. I passed through all kinds of scares, including the typical way we think, why me? Why did God select me to get this kind of a needle stick? What wrong have I ever done? Later, I was asked to join Dr. Kutnis dispensary as an in charge there. Kutnis dispensary is the same Dr. Kutnis of Amar Kahani kind of stuff. No? He was the one who went to China and helped them in World War II. And we had the oldest STD clinic that was present at that juncture. Now, what was worse, I was a pediatrician. And I didn't know how to diagnose STDs, how to handle STDs. But then one thing which I did was I never gave up. I accepted the challenge. Every Saturday, Sunday, I used to go to GT hospital and learn about STDs. One of the best things that I had is we had collaboration with Johns Hopkins University. The result, we were using the best diagnostics, which were perhaps not available to any STD practitioner anywhere in the country. The result was I could refine my skills of diagnosis and management very well, and to a tune that we had one of the largest cohort of STD clinic attendees. 10,000 odd people were followed every 3 months in the clinics per se. One good thing that I could do, I could project Gadikhana, which is known as Gadikhana, that is Dr. Kutnis clinic popularly. that Gadikhana became globally famous in terms of research. If you look at our earlier publications, my clinic used to get one advantage which I had was Budwarpet was close by. So I used to get sex workers, MSM, all kinds of Hijra population. And that was a big learning that I used to have then. I must have been perhaps the first pediatrician to give a keynote address in a national venerologist conference. That is because I had good collaboration, I could learn and refine my own skills. All this was because of the scientific rigor that I had developed because of research mindset per se. The biggest opportunity that influenced my career was I was sent for doing MPH at Johns Hopkins University. Johns Hopkins is world's #1 public health program institute. What is most important is it's perhaps #1 in majority of the medicine related branches. I did not take my family with me. The reason was, which was allowed, and I used to get more dollars if I would have taken there. But my biggest fear was if I take my family, and if they start saying that we like the USA, we would like to stay back, then what would happen? My desire to come back would never get fulfilled. So I stayed alone for 1 year in US. And what was most important was I took 110 credits. There was the maximum credits that you can take in JHU for doing MPH was 110. If you have to pass, you could do it with 80 credits, but I took 110 because I said, this is my last opportunity to learn. I may not be able to give full time again in my own life. And that shaped me a lot because I went up to AP5 level, because you used to have AP1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the same way in biostat. And that shaped the way I think. Though if you ask me, during COVID times, I was recognized as an epidemiology person. But if you ask me, I used to be a clinician before, but this MPH added that layer of epidemiology to my mind. My first most cited paper was a very simple one. Those patients who were coming in Gadikhana, and their partners were getting tested. And one day I decided, while I was in JHU, I decided that we should compare sex workers versus non-sex workers who are STD clinic attending. When we analyzed the data, one of the things that became prominent during analysis, that among those who denied history of sex work, 92% of these women were married and they had no exposure whatsoever in terms of sexual exposure to other partners, which actually became so famous. It was published in JAMA, which was a very high impact factor journal then. This was used by UNAIDS to do advocacy in Southeast Asia region towards undertaking research efforts to develop women-centric prevention methods per se. And at that time, one thing which I learned was most of the people who used to get HIV, they used to be called as sinners. And therefore, nobody was interested in doing anything for them. Then I realized that when it comes to talking about married monogamous women, there was a sea of change. People became sympathetic. They said, these ladies are getting infection without their own implication in the risk behaviors. So that reduced the level of stigma. So I learned for the first time that if you focus on women, things can be different. You can influence policymakers. And then I learned that if it is pregnant women and their babies, perhaps that would be the best thing to happen. We can develop a good program because we don't think it that way. This was the paper then, which was published in JAMA. I won't go over that. Next thing which we did the first study globally where we tried to establish that counseling actually helps. Now, you might say, oh, it is so easy, intuitively so simple. No, but the reality is the study design for the same has to be very different because ethically, you cannot give no counseling to one of the groups per se when you do such kind of studies. This became one of the best practices paper in UNAIDS in that particular year. You will perhaps learn that we use syndromic approach for management of sexually transmitted diseases. Now, one of the things was people used to resist. And then we did a beautiful study where we found that generally among these people, you tend to get more than one STDs. They have different incubation period, and therefore they can manifest at different times. And therefore you have to use syndromic approach. And this was a paper which was used in India to push syndromic management of STIs in the entire country. Now, circumcision was another our landmark contribution. In circumcision, we found that most often people used to say those who are uncircumcised, those who are circumcised, the risk of acquisition of HIV is very low. When we analyzed our huge database, we realized it may not be true. For the first time globally, we came out with one finding that the risk of acquiring HIV may be low, but it doesn't reduce the risk of acquiring different STDs, whether it is syphilis or chancroid. And this balances the risk of acquisition of HIV because it tends to enhance the risk dramatically in presence of STDs per se. And that led to a revolution worldwide. If you actually look at the literature, you will find then there were people who started thinking about circumcision. The PMTCT was another prevention of mother-to-child transmission program. Now, when I passed out MPH, I decided I would like to do something different. And by then, as I said, I had learned that if you focus more on pregnant women and children, their unborn children, perhaps you will get all kinds of support. So I came back to India. I wrote a protocol, clinical trial protocol, using ritonavir, which subsequently turned out to be a rotten drug. But those days, this was a new drug that was available then. Now, when I went for funding, everybody refused. They said, we don't want to fund a clinical trial. No. This is a story of 1997, 1998. Then UNICEF said, we don't fund clinical trial, but if you do a demonstration project, and if you use earlier findings, we would be willing to fund. And that's how I went with that concept that I can develop a protocol for UNICEF. But what was the best thing? There was a meeting for development of guidelines against opportunistic infections at national level. Now, when we were actually having lunch, the Director General then of NACO, Mr. JVR Prasad Rao, he came and he said, while eating, he just was talking to me and said, I have come from Bangkok yesterday. The CDC has developed a new, they released certain findings. फिर ये निकालूं क्या दोनों रखूं ठीक हाँ 10 minutes कोई चिंता नहीं अभी फास्ट जाएगा So he said, can we do zidovudine based study? Should I invite CDC? And then I asked him a question, why should you invite CDC? We have sufficient expertise. Can we not do it by ourselves? And that's how the first protocol was developed by me. And then subsequently, the first investment, national investment in AIDS programming came for this zidovudine based approach, which was called as Bangkok regimen, where 11 crore rupees was put in. Earlier, we were only using World Bank funds. Later, I developed a protocol using nevirapine. And then one thing happened that we decided to roll down this as a national program in 2002, which was done very successfully. One day, I was in NACO, and then Mrs. Sushma Swaraj was then the health minister. She had lost election in Bellary. So she told, she had lost it against Sonia Gandhi. So she told that I want the best of healthcare to be provided in Bellary. So one such letter had also come to NACO, and the additional DG there, he saw me walking out of a meeting. He said, "Arey, अच्छा हो गया, ये आप देखो ना, इसका कुछ तो अच्छा बनाना है." Then I laid down one condition: I'll write the best thing, but you should not remove anything out of it. And there I put in free antiretroviral therapy program for Bellary. No, he said, this will never be approved. I said, if she wants the best of the program, she will approve. And we use this particular precedence to try and develop free ART programming. And that's how free ART programming became a norm nationally after 2004. Free ART was the first such intervention for any chronic disease which required lifelong treatment. We had never done that in any national program so far. The lesson that we learn is never give up, search for solution. Every challenge can be overcome, spot the opportunity. Later, I advocated for the expansion of the program in different ways, including those for monitoring. I also believe that if you want lifelong adherence, it's one of the most difficult things to do. Just imagine sex workers or poor people who get infected by HIV, and nobody is going to stick to taking treatment on time every day for life. So one of the things which I realized was it can only be done if we improve treatment literacy. And that's how I started speaking about HIV prevention as well as treatment, side effects that occur with the treatment, with all kinds of population in simple languages to them, to a tune that the associations used to take the videos and show it across in their networks across, because that was the best way that we could scale up on the knowledge per se. And it was easy for me to do, because I do not remember how many patients I must have had managed, but it is in 30,000-40,000 patients must have had been my patients. And majority of those HIV infected people who were prominent leaders were also my patients. And the result was that community acceptance was very high. I take a pride in one thing in HIV, that treatment literacy among PLHs, people living with HIV infection, is far higher compared to the literacy about any of the chronic diseases that one tends to have from a mainstream literate population per se. You require quality counselors for them. So one of the things which we did was we wrote a book, in a question answer format on the horizon of adulthood, which was printed by UNICEF. 5 lakh copies were distributed across in 3 different languages. And this book used to be treated as one of the textbooks that every counselor should read and understand about HIV better. I became director in charge at NARI in 2015. So we are coming close to ending, I suppose. Don't worry. I changed the atmosphere. One of the first things which we must remember is we should provide freedom to our juniors. Most often, all the papers that you read, either the boss is the first author or the last author. I changed that thing because I know only one thing, that even my stature can increase if the juniors work really well and earn their name. And that was what I essentially followed. And one of the big dreams that I had, NARI became the 3rd globally approved global laboratory for pre-qualification by WHO, where we could say if we test a particular kit and if we approve at our end, globally people will purchase it without doubting its quality. And I expanded that mandate that I had for HIV-DR drug resistance testing to Nepal, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar during my tenure. Now we'll skip this part. Sometimes even I wonder, how was this entire journey possible? It all depends on advocacy skills. This is what I infer as of now. Now, what are my learnings? Whenever you want to question, always start with a positive note and then spend time on discussing evidences for a revised strategy that you want them to adopt. Always compliment the program whenever you do, that this is the most successful program. And why is it successful? Because policymakers are progressive, flexible, and believe in evidence-based strategies. So they they cannot deviate from the evidence base per se. Never criticize in public. Always do it in small rooms when you want to even discuss something strongly, but discuss evidences respectfully in every forum. While requesting for introduction of costly interventions, you must understand, for HIV, it was huge money that we had to spend for ART purchase or even for monitoring through CD4s and viral load. How do you advocate for the same? Should look at the savings that you may have in terms of lives saved and the kind of treatment that they would require otherwise as a complication. Use media and community effectively, you will be best off. Then subsequently I was transferred to as head of epidemiology and communicable diseases in ICMR. Now, my first challenge, I joined in January, and in May, my first challenge came from Nepal, which had a case fatality rate of 89%. It occurred in Kerala, which was an unusual state. And then I fought. It lasted only for 2 weeks. And within those 2 weeks, we did dramatic research work. And what was most important was we became global leaders in Nepal within a short period of time. We had developed an adaptive trial design to be against Nepal using different kinds of, like you heard about COVID, we were the leaders. We were the principal investigators for entire Southeast Asia region. And what was most important, when it occurred again in 2019 summer, we could stop Nepal. Only one case occurred there. And the child, not the child, he was an engineering student who survived because of our own efforts. What was more important for Atmanirbhar Bharat? I take a lot of pride in that we developed a point of care test for Nipah. It's a molecular test which is approved by our Drug Controller General of India and not the reverse way. We tend to have approvals by US FDA or EC and then take up those tests here. But this is a different kind of thing that we could do. This was something which we had never done in the past. Even DCGI was handling such a case for the first time. And we also developed a similar test for leptospira, which perhaps you will see soon enough. We provided the first evidence then in 2018 that Zika was a well-established infection in India that was in Jaipur and in Madhya Pradesh at that juncture when Zika outbreak occurred strongly. We initiated multiple studies, but Zika outbreak died down and therefore they could not be completed. Nipah, the reason why I'm showing this, somebody had asked me to speak on bioterrorism also. Nipah introduced a fear that there could be bioterrorism. The reason was in Kerala, in that part of Kozhikode, you had SIMI or some such organization which is banned. And there was a fear because one of the soldiers was suspected to have Nipah who had died. The result was this care had to be handled productively. So what we did was we trained our staff in biosecurity in Bangladesh, where Australian people did that. I had, in one of the efforts was in TB, you must have heard that there are certain tests which come from multinational company. No, but we had developed our own indigenous test by a Indian company. And when the government asked me to ensure that this would be supported by WHO and Global Fund, I was sent to Geneva, but I failed. No, I could not convince them. That was a shocking thing that I learned there. And then I came back. While in the flight, I decided I must fight against it. Why should I have approvals that have to come from agencies outside for selling good tests in other markets per se? So I established a 10-country network, where from Timor-Leste to Maldives, no, except in Pakistan and China, all the countries were part of it. We had 2 different meetings, and the idea was very simple, that if I develop a research platform and everybody undertakes, let's say, validation of these tests or any intervention which are indigenous, they will actually be able to buy, because their own drug controllers would have had allowed it. And what was most important, almost 1/3 of the population stays in these 10 countries. So I should not worry in terms of my market if it's a Indian this thing. Then perhaps I couldn't progress ahead because COVID came. This was a story of January 1st in 2020. Madmasri was declared on 25th of January. Suddenly in the afternoon, I got a phone call from Ministry of Home Affairs, and they informed me. I was actually going to buy a trolley, because I wanted to go back to Pune. No, but then I didn't know anything. No, but this was only possible. No, it is a matter of principle for me. I have never applied for any award in my life, because I think we project ourselves. You will be reminded of the first slide. You tend to project in such a manner, you become almost narcissist. No, what is important was, this was a nomination that came from all the associations of people living with HIV infection, sex workers, men having sex with men, and Hizada population. They said, if you don't get it, that would be the biggest insult of us as a community. You deserve it. The Nipah and Zika work got me support from Ministry of Health as well, because they did not, they said he should also get it at that juncture. One reason why I'm mentioning this is, people tend to feel that my Padma Shri was because of COVID. It has nothing to do with COVID. No, on that day of 25th January, when they declared on the TV and informed me as well, no, the truth is, I was trying to find out what happened to the 4 samples which we had collected in Jaipur, and Health Secretary was all the time pushing me. अच्छा जल्दी बोलना, अब क्या करूं, मैं आपको ज्यादा कुछ नहीं बोल सकती, आज तो आपको पद्मश्री डिक्लेयर हुआ, लेकिन वो जरा कर देना ना, ये रात को 11 बजे तक. It was a bad time at that juncture. We managed to do a lot of things in COVID. Most of them are truly, if you ask me, are not known outside. We expanded the testing labs. All of you know, from one lab, you had more than 2,500 labs now. And that was done virtually, because there was a lockdown. We had to train them virtually, do quality assessment as well. We started national task force, expert groups on operations research, diagnostic research, and clinical research, launched multiple studies in different aspects, including plasma therapy, and national serosurveys were done during lockdown, which was not so easy. And take initiatives in development of diagnostic ELISA, co-vaccine, and Covishield also. Now, this was all done before I retired. And what was the most challenging task? The challenging task that I used to face when people say I used to be seen every day on TV. No, the challenging task was to educate the community. Please remember that even for AIDS today, while the program is almost now more than 4 decades old, no, almost 4 decades old now, if you actually look at it, the proportion of people who are aware of even preventive routes and practice them continues to be low. We take decades to change people, adopt, ensure that they adopt preventive practices. And the fear was COVID is not going to give you such an opportunity because it's a very rapidly spreading kind of a virus. The challenge was there are no theoretical models on how to communicate during public health emergencies. Ours is a democratic country. If today also, if somebody now tells you whether I should stop speaking, there will be half the people who will say yes, other half will say don't. No, that's the way our democracy is. The fear was when I was asked to handle the press, I was not used to it. When I went there, one of the things that I had in my mind, if I fail once, if I use one wrong word, everybody in the country used to be looking at you. If you do that, all the gains that you had made earlier would be wiped out and people will come out on the street. Now that I had to avoid. So what did I decide? Adopt transparency. This was important because none of us knew about COVID so much. We were also learning, and it takes guts on TV to say to somebody that we don't understand, I don't understand what will happen, because we are not used to saying something like this. And truthful responses in simple languages. My retirement, to be honest, was the most celebrated event for a government servant. No? Otherwise, I was a public servant. Within an hour of my retirement, the news flew like a wildfire when it became viral, and over 2,000 Twitter messages went to PMO's office to not to let him go. The reality was, I was told that you should continue for next 3 years, but I had my own personal reasons that I wanted to come back. And that led to one thing, that I could meet Modi. When I was awarded Padma Shri, he himself came. I had never met him in any formal meeting, though I had met all other ministers. Yeah, I used to interact with them. But the reality was, he just came and said, there are 110 people who received some Padma award or the other. He came and said, so you have retired. Now you must be itching to work more. Now, for a person who came from such a background, where I never saw myself that I would be one person whom Modi, whom I respect a lot, would ever know me, and he would also know that I have retired and offer that you could work with me. That was my biggest moment. If I was to briefly summarize, last slide, sorry. Summary नहीं किया तो वो तो गया ना, वो गाइड ही नहीं है फिर. One can win hurdles race with passion and dedication and hard work. Never expect that people will facilitate your success because you deserve it. Every effort to stop you should make your intentions to reach the goal stronger. Your race ideally should be with yourself, your past, and not with people around you. Because if you become jealous of somebody else's achievements, you are going to lose your time, you are going to lose in terms of efforts. Compete with yourself, try to better yourself further. Never try to strive for recognition for treat everyone equal. This is a great, if you do that, world is one of the best places to live. And what is most important about research? If you do only practice, you tend to treat one patient at a time. If you do research, you try to give a policy change, and then you are indirectly treating hundreds of thousands of people. You could just imagine the numbers, because it depends on disease burden. What is most important to remember? Even if you would be the best practitioner, if you become a researcher, you will find in the history books of medical journals, your name will continuously be remaining there. No, but for a practicing physician, maybe for 10 years, people will talk about him. After that, you are no more. I wish you the greatest success that you can have. Combine both practice as well as research. You will make a difference. And one of the talks I'm told is from Dr. Bhaviskar. You will not find a better example of how research can be done while practicing. Thanks a lot, and I'm apologizing for delay. Sorry,
Thank you, sir. Those were some inspiring words. Sir has worked closely with the people at the grassroots level, like sex workers and HIV-affected patients. Shattering the taboo surrounding such group of people, he talked about stigmatized topics like sexuality, which requires education among the masses. Thank you, sir, for sharing your experiences with us. Those were invaluable.
Now, we would like to show our gratitude to Dr. Raman Ganga Khedkar sir by presenting sir with a token of appreciation. I kindly request Dr. Prasad sir, Professor and Head of Department of Medicine, to present Dr. Raman Ganga Khedkar sir with a token of appreciation.
I think sir is the biggest teacher for all of us. So I want the students to stand up and give us standing ovation.
Navjeet Singh, sir, as our next guest for the session.
Dr. Navjeet Singh sir is the Head of Medical Affairs, Biomedics, South Asia. He is an alumnus of UCMS, New Delhi, with more than 20 years of experience in the field of medical affairs. He has made history in the hospital and healthcare industry by having worked with the country's most esteemed healthcare institutes throughout his career in the field of emergency medicine.
He was earlier heading medical services and handling anti-infective portfolio at Ranbaxy Lab for ASPAC region, having 32 brands of antimicrobials in different segments. So now I would like to invite Dr. Navjeet Singh sir on the stage to brief us about this topic, antimicrobial resistance. Yes.
It's from the pen drive, no? Yeah, I'll Oh, yeah. Is it on? Pardon? No, it's okay. Just let it start. Sorry. Good afternoon, everybody, and it's really a pleasure to see such a big crowd of students, faculty, honorable, distinguished members of VM Medical College and HODs. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me today, and I'm very pleased, and there is a sense of deja vu of seeing students managing the whole show. Yeah, I also used to do the same in my time, and I wish you all the luck. Yes, I'm really pleased, but I hope I can meet the challenge to catch my flight from Pune at 9 p.m. So I'll try my best. As far as the session goes, I will take the allotted time, 30 minutes to me, and I want your complete attention because the topic which we have chosen, that's antimicrobial resistance or AMR, is not only a regional threat, not only a national threat, but it's a global threat. And that is something which we need to intervene, not when we become doctors, but we need to understand while we are becoming doctors that how important it is to learn at this stage so that we can do the right steps to either tackle AMR or reduce AMR for the future generations. So I would be talking about the challenges and diagnostic solutions which are, pertaining to AMR. So I would be covering some topics in my presentation, starting from what are the challenges, how COVID-19 has changed AMR, what is antimicrobial stewardship and role of diagnostics in it. And I will also share with you some real-time case studies and take-home points from various hospitals. So let me start with the challenges. And it was a pleasure to listen to the earlier talk, which was very insightful, a lot of experience. But yes, the experience is saying that by year 2030, most of the antibiotics, which are high-end antibiotics, will become extinct, like the dinosaurs. And this is the way antibiotics are being prescribed, used, or if I say misused, that this is going to definitely happen. Dr. Rama was talking about Time magazine, but I also want to share something about Time magazine. So people say time cannot go wrong, but time can also go wrong. That means Time magazine here. In 1966, Time magazine was saying that nearly all of the bacterial and viral diseases would be wiped out from the globe by year 2000 AD. But the same Time magazine in 2017 is asking us how to keep the world safe from superbugs. So you can very well understand what kind of issue AMR is. Presently, as far as the data is available, I can tell you this data is only from Western countries or developed nations, not from developing nations or so on and so forth. It says that something like 700,000 or 7 lakh people die because of AMR related consequences. And this is one death every 45 seconds. But a report which came up in 2015 by Sir Jim O'Neill, who was basically a finance minister in James Cameron government. He published a report on AMR, which says that by year 2050, would be estimated 10 million deaths because of AMR. And 10 million, which means a crore deaths. So that is how it will progress. And believe you me, this data is not taken from underdeveloped countries or African countries or countries even in Southeast Asia. So how does AMR impacts us? So many of you must have known about antibiotic resistant organisms like MRSA and MSSA. MSSA means methicillin sensitive Staph aureus. MRSA means when it becomes resistant, so it is methicillin resistant Staph aureus. So whether it is the cost to treat a patient or the mortality rate just doubles if MSSA changes to MRSA. And we take the gold medal in consuming antibiotics all over the world. India, it was followed in various countries for 15 years from 2000 to 2015, and it was found that we consume the highest amount of antibiotics in the world. You very well know, we even advise antibiotics to family members, to friends. Arey gala kharab ho gaya to azithromycin le lijiye. Kya badi baat hai. Sometimes, though we all are doctors, people advise us also. I remember sitting in a flight and somebody advising me, aap ciprofloxacin le lijiye. So, people know antibiotics and we get antibiotics so easily. We all should have some money and we can get antibiotics, sometimes even free of cost from the hospital pharmacy. But see where we are. We are consuming antibiotics even more than China, even more than Russia, which are again big countries. And that's the reason India has the highest antibiotic resistant rates. Not only that, India has the highest rates of superbugs. That means resistant organisms all over the globe. So we lead. And earlier there was no data from India coming up, but there is an organization named CDDEP, Center for Disease Dynamics and Economics, which publishes data from LMIC, that is low and middle income countries, and just see antibiotics and resistance levels as compared to other countries where India stands. We are having resistance for carbapenems also, which are very high-end antibiotics. And this is for E. coli. Similarly, for Klebsiella, we are the gold medals again. Even polymyxins have started showing resistances in India. Pseudomonas, just see, we, touch 70% or more for most of the antibiotics which are available. Don't believe Australia doesn't has any because the data was not there. Then Acinetobacter. These are all killer bugs, and just see where we stand as compared to other countries. So that was the issue of AMR, which was already there, but then COVID happened. And believe you me, just see the levels of prescriptions of drugs like doxycycline, hydroxychloroquine, or ferropenem shooting, the prescriptions just shooting during COVID times. Because as Dr. Rama was saying, nobody was aware what to do. Everybody was trying everything. And antibiotics is the most easy way to try it in all patients. So just see what levels. Definitely you can see HCQ came down after reports saying that it doesn't work much, but others still, went up. So very important study, I would say, published in July 2021 said that there has been substantial overuse of antibiotics during COVID-19. And India will greatly need to increase COVID-19 testing and reduce empirical therapy. Empirical therapy, which we all know, is just giving antibiotics without doing any investigations or knowing which is the right one to give, or just start like that. So antimicrobial stewardship interventions is very critical now for India if we want to overcome this crisis. So we have bad news all around, because of misuse and overuse of antibiotics in hospitals. But have we ever thought why we misuse or overuse antibiotics? Have you ever thought the reasons about that? So we give indiscriminate antibiotic prescriptions. We many a times land up selecting the wrong antibiotic. Either we start antibiotics too early or too late, or we give it for prolonged duration. Even if, it is said that we need to give it for 5 days, we land up giving it for 10 days also. We use or inappropriate use of broad spectrum antibiotics when we can select narrow spectrum antibiotics. Sometimes we change the antibiotics too fast. We use parenteral antibiotics even when oral effective antibiotics are available. And moreover, we don't consider appropriate diagnostics while prescribing antibiotics. have you ever seen how many people or how many HODs, first saying, okay, let us do this test and then start an antibiotic and see whether we have started the right antibiotic or not. So this was bad news, but there is good news. Good news is that in some hospitals in UK, what they did, they restricted use of fluoroquinolones for some years. So during that duration, you can see they had less incidence of fluoroquinolone resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa, or the incidence decreased. So that means if we can restrict use of antibiotics, we can decrease resistance. And that is obviously needs a lot of effort. So what kind of effort is required? That effort is known by the term antimicrobial stewardship. That means we are stewards. Steward is the word by English dictionary, means that you need somebody to protect something. So we are there to protect the available antibiotics. Otherwise, we may land up what I showed you in the first slide, in extinction area of antibiotics. And how role of diagnostics is important. So let us first try and understand antimicrobial stewardship. So as this cartoons say that, if a lady is asking what can you give to a man who has everything, the answer is antibiotics. That you can give it to anybody. And fever is not a sign of ceftriaxone deficiency, but we believe, if somebody has fever, somebody should be given antibiotic because that may be deficiency of antibiotics. So that is also not the case. So what does AMS means, or antimicrobial stewardship means? That you should give the right antibiotic for the right indication, for the right dose and route, for the right duration, so that you can save those antibiotics for future generations. It sounds so simple, but it's not as simple as that, because even the first step of choosing the right antibiotic is sometimes challenging. Which antibiotic will work in this patient? So how do we know that? So this gentleman is Sir Jim O'Neill, whom I told you was a minister in UK government. He was not at all a medical guy. So he came up with a 20-point agenda to tackle AMR. And, we were fortunate enough to host him in our headquarters in France, Lyon. So he was asked, which is out of that 20, which is the most important thing you will say we need to do? So he said, when I am asked the most important intervention that would make a huge difference, it would be using diagnostics to prescribe the right kind of antibiotics, or even to stop antibiotics. So when we talk about diagnostics and AMR and infections, I think we cannot forget blood cultures. I believe many of you would be second prof students, or even final prof students, or even PGs. Yeah, you must have heard about blood cultures, or even must have drawn blood cultures yourself in OPD postings or ward postings. So we talk so high about blood cultures, but here you can see a data of nearly 150,000 samples. Only 5% of these sepsis patients had confirmed blood cultures. So are blood cultures so non-worthy that only 5% come positive? Yeah, many of times we have seen reports like blood culture negative, even if the patient has infection. So why does it happen? It happens because obviously first is absence of bacteremia. There may be no bacteremia, intermittent bacteremia, prior administration or presence of antibiotics, non-cultivable organisms, fastidious organisms, but most importantly, poor use of blood cultures. Because sometimes we don't write blood cultures at all. Even if we write blood cultures, we don't know how much blood to be put in each bottle. So I have asked this question sometimes, how much blood to be put in each bottle? I've got answers like 0.5 ml to 50 ml also. So you can understand the level of understanding about how much blood to be put in each bottle. We sometimes believe we don't have anaerobic infections, so we use only aerobic bottles. But that is not the case. And we don't use enough sets. Enough sets means, one set means 2 bottles. So if there is somebody from cardiology, they may agree with me that for conditions like infective endocarditis, you have to send 3 sets, which means 6 bottles. And what usually we see that there will be 1 bottle, which will be sent with some quantity of blood, and the lab is asked to find the bug. That is challenging. So what usually manual blood cultures are done. You take a bottle, you see every 24 hours. If there is a growth, you subculture, but keep on seeing it every 24 hours for 7 days. And if there is no growth, you write no growth seen. So it's an extremely time-taking process with a very high risk of contamination. So there are a lot of drawbacks of manual blood culture if you are doing. But for me as a clinician, if you ask me, the most important drawback is no antimicrobial neutralization. That means if somebody has taken a course of antibiotic, blood culture will not grow something if it is, done like manually. Man has evolved, so has the microbes. So we have to fight with bugs, right? That is important. So nowadays, why I'm showing this picture is because this is from bioMérieux, but there are many other blood culture and all are great. So rather than manual, there are automated blood culture equipments which are available. And how do they help us? They do continuous monitoring. If you put a bottle inside that machine with blood sample. So reading is not taken every 24 hours. Reading is taken every 10 minutes. It's a ready-to-use media. It is an inbuilt incubator and agitator, which means it increases the chances of growth. And the bottles have media for antibiotic neutralization, which again means if somebody has already taken a course of antibiotic, you can still expect a growth. Why? Because it has media which neutralizes antibiotics. So let's inculcate culture of doing cultures. So let's do prescribed cultures in particularly bloodstream infections, or we suspect bloodstream infections. Then after blood cultures, if there is a growth, we need to find out which bug it is and which antibiotic will work. So something known as AST, I believe, have you ever heard about AST? Anybody? Okay, no problem. So AST means antibiotic susceptibility testing, which tells which antibiotic has more probability of working in that particular patient. So it is reported like S, I, and R, sensitive, intermediate, or resistant in front of antibiotic. So that is the usual way of reporting, but doesn't work when you have multi-drug resistance organism or immunocompromised or critically ill patients or challenging pathogens like Pseudomonas, Acinetobacter, Stenotrophomonas. So I will share a very interesting case, and this case is from your nearby Mumbai only. So there is a 24-year-old patient with abscess and cellulitis, which means skin and soft tissue infection. He was given clindamycin and penicillin, and on doing gram staining, I believe some people must be knowing what is gram staining. On doing gram staining, there are, you can see, gram-positive cocci in clusters resembling staph. So do you think the person has been given the right antibiotic? I think so, because it looks like staph and clindamycin and penicillin will work against staph. So let us see the manual AST report. So more number of pluses means better is the antibiotic. So you can see here, penicillin is 3+, looks okay. And clindamycin is 2+, looks okay. But there is an inherent fallacy. The fallacy is here. If you do by manual method, so if the zone of inhibition is less than or equal to 28, penicillin is resistant. But if it is more than or equal to 29, penicillin is sensitive. So will I treat my sepsis patients or critical patients by this method? Obviously not, because an error of 1 millimeter can make penicillin sensitive to resistance and vice versa. So the gold standard to do an antibiotic susceptibility testing is MIC, that is minimum inhibitory concentration. I'm sure you must have read it in microbiology also. You must have read it in pharmacology also. KDT to padhte hoge. So I don't know whether it is in vogue nowadays or not, but it's very easily explained in these books. So MIC means minimum inhibitory concentration, where there is a doubling dilution of antibiotic in series of test tube, and you add equal quantity of microbial solution in all of them. So the first test tube, which shows inhibition like here, 1.6 is the answer. That's the MIC. So it is said that lower the MIC, better is the antibiotic. So if we treat or choose an antibiotic based on MIC, we may have a better decision making. So why MIC is a gold standard for all critical infections? These are all infections. where anybody, or when you are thinking of starting an antibiotic, please base your treatment on MIC reporting. And you can see all critical infections are written here. But there is something known as breakpoints also, which you have to keep in mind while prescribing antibiotics, and breakpoints have to be correlated with MICs. So what are breakpoints? Breakpoints are basically dynamic values which change every year, and it takes care of serum achievable levels, resistance mechanism, and successful therapeutic outcomes. So because it takes all into vogue, so that is the reason they are important while prescribing antibiotics, and that is the reason they change every year. And this is done by scientific communities. But what we need to know about breakpoints is that when you get a report of MIC for any patient, it should be less than the MIC breakpoint for that drug. Only then there is higher probable chance of that antibiotic working. So I will try to explain it a very hypothetical, simple example. So suppose there are 4 antibiotics, A, B, C, and D, with 4 MIC levels. So which one you would like to choose? If you ask me, I will like to choose D because it is the lowest MIC. So I believe that D will work the best in this patient because this antibiotic has the lowest MIC. But till now, I have not correlated with breakpoints. So when I correlated with breakpoints, you can see the breakpoint of D is less than the MIC which we have got from the patient. So it will be resistant. But on the other hand, antibiotic A, which I was not considering at all, it is much less than the MIC breakpoint. So it will be sensitive. So this is how MIC and correlating it with breakpoint can help you choose a better drug for a patient. But for that, you should have a report which is based on MIC. So do we have something which gives us MIC values in a patient? Yes. So this is another automated equipment named Vitek 2, where the report when you get is antibiotics and their MICs written, and which further you can interpret that whether they are sensitive, intermediate, or resistant. So this is a fully automated system. It has more than 300 organism database in it. You get the result in hours versus days, and the AST report is given along with MIC. And also there is an advanced expert system which can tell you resistance mechanisms also, like ESBLs or something within the report. And it gives me pleasure, which I got to know from my colleagues, that your hospital already has this equipment. Am I right? Okay, great. So that if you have time, please go to your lab, and thanks to Dr. Sujata, having it there in the lab, so you can contact her, see this instrument, how it works, and it would be really helpful. So now I will come to share a real case with you. Have you heard about this organism in your hospital? Elizabeth Kingia meningosepticum. Yes, it looks like, name looks like it is not in India. It must be in UK. Elizabeth, Elizabeth Kingia meningosepticum. It cannot be in India. Why I'm talking about this organism? Because if somebody finds this organism, one should be really worried, because no antibiotics work against this organism. And why I'm sharing this? Because in India, we thought it is not there, So this is a report, Vitek report from Medanta Hospital. So this is a Vitek report. You can see how the report comes. So Vitek gives you which organism it is, Elizabeth Kingia, and it also tells you what is the MIC of various antibiotics in that Vitek card. So you can see very well here, either it is R or I. So most of the antibiotics are resistant, except 3. Those 3 antibiotics are ciprofloxacin, tigecycline, and cotrimoxazole. And the doctor called me and he said, first of all, we never thought that we will have this organism in our hospital. Second, we never thought that even ciprofloxacin can work in this organism. So they started, based on this report, they started with cotrimoxazole, and the patient improved rapidly. So they published this in 2011. So this is something like 11 years back. And I'm sure it is there in all parts of India. And if you have Vitec and if you are doing reports on Vitec, you will also find it in your city or in your hospital. So I can tell you with an example. I was giving a similar talk in Varanasi in 2014, if I remember. And the hospital didn't have a Vitec. So I was showing them. So they were kind of amused. They said, Dr. Saab, hamare yahan nahi hota ye sab. We never get. So that hospital bought Vitec after 6 months. And I used to go to the same hospital after an year. By that time, they had isolated 5 Elizabeth Kingia meningosepticums. So this is very much around. So I can also tell you, these are the new Vitec cards, which are now available. I will not go into the details. So there are various antibiotics for gram negatives, fermenters, gram negative. So that is a very useful card. So concluding on MIC, MIC is a measure to susceptibility of a pathogen to a possible antimicrobial therapy in vitro. So the aim of susceptibility testing and MIC measurement is to predict the likely treatment of success and how it helps the clinician. You can select the most appropriate antibiotic, customize antimicrobial dosing regimen. So these all advantages you can do if you are treating your patients based on MIC. And my last section is real-time case studies and some take-home points. So anybody from pediatrics here? No, I know, but maybe somebody here? No, no problem. So good, I am feeling very satisfied that I am discussing MR to an audience who will have the maximum risk. Fever is moderate to high grade, and there is no other history. No rash, no pain abdomen, no loose stools, no cough, no dysuria or ear discharge. Only history is poor weight gain. And even if, okay, except there is some hepatosplenomegaly with anemia. So, how we patients like PUO, pyrexia unknown region. So was given ceftriaxone, artesunate, so we are giving ceftriaxone again, right? Then more investigations were done. Again, malaria is not there. Typhoid is not there. Blood culture, they had not sent, but they sent on 3rd day. And only provisional diagnosis which they make was enteric hepatitis. So that is the diagnosis which they are making. But when they did it on Vitec, they found brucella. And nobody was thinking about brucella at that point of time. So they changed, they stopped everything and started Septran and discharge in stable condition. So what does it mean? What they said, we were not thinking about brucella because it is a hospital in a very prime affluent society. They thought, come on, where brucella? Then they took the history that the kid had gone to grandparents who live in, countryside and, had a close contact, and then that fever and poor weight gain for 1 month. Nobody was able to diagnose. So they said we would have also not, if we had not taken blood cultures and further used Vitec for the identification. So this is the second case of a baby born after prolonged rupture of membranes, which means, she had signs of early onset of sepsis. CRP is raised. They when do anaerobic bottles always. So when they had put it on Bactrilert, the anaerobic bottle flagged positive first rather than Vitek. So instead of, baby was started on cefuroxime, but then they added pip/tazo for anaerobic coverage, and then the CRP or the C-reactive protein started falling, and the baby was discharged. Though they could find bacteroids after 3 days also, but the time was saved because they had automated blood culture and Vitek, which could help them identify bacteroids much faster and start treatments much better. So coming to the concluding slides, that how diagnostic tests can help fight AMR, they can definitely help you because you can identify the organism, you can adjust and optimize treatment, and you can also monitor the patient response. Because if you have chosen the right antibiotic, you can continue, but if you have not, you can change and give the right antibiotic at the right time and do antimicrobial stewardship. So what are the take-home points for us? Antibiotic resistance is very high in India, and let's agree more than 50 to 80% of all gram-negative bacteria are resistant. Diagnostics are key for tackling the menace of AMR. Automated blood culture and identification methods significantly reduce the time and decision-making for early antibiotic therapy. MIC is the most accurate method for prediction of clinical outcome of antibiotic therapy. MIC and breakpoint correlation are critical components of antimicrobial stewardship. So please correlate the MIC levels with breakpoints. And evolution of bacterial resistance and development of new automation makes a close working relationship between microbiologists and clinicians. So I would request you to be in touch with your lab, with your microbiologist, while making decisions to start antibiotics or even to stop. So I started with a slide that by 2030, we may land in pre-penicillin era. But I am showing you a report of Vitek from Safdarjung Hospital, Delhi. And this report is printed on March 13, 2009, which is showing Pseudomonas aeruginosa. And there is not even a single antibiotic which is sensitive. All are resistant. So we are already there. We were thinking that we will land in 2030, but we are already in pre-penicillin era. And there are organisms which don't know antibiotic is working against them. So what is future for us? In 2000 BC, we were asked to eat the root. In 1000 AD, the root is hidden. We were asked to say the prayer. In 1850 AD, the prayer is superstition, drink the potion. In 1920, the potion is snake oil, so swallow the pill. Thank God, in 1945, the pill is ineffective and we had penicillin. But believe you me, within 10 years, even penicillin was resistant. But we had tetracycline. And similarly, we had more antibiotics coming up till 1919. But I'm sure by 2030, if we don't change our habits, our learnings about AMR, the bugs will win, and we will again have to eat the root like 2000 BC. Thank you so much, and keep doing antimicrobial stewardship. I honestly know there is not much time left for taking questions, but if anybody has a burning question, you are always welcome to contact us. My colleagues are here, Abhijit and my gentleman sitting here. You can contact us for any help, any advances in antimicrobial resistant managing or antimicrobial stewardship, or even the newer solutions which are coming. We have procalcitonin, we have equipments for syndromic approach, we have blood cultures, we have IDASTs, and so on and so forth. So it is again a pleasure to see such a great audience, and keep up the good work. And please remember that you have the maximum responsibility of tackling AMR. Otherwise, we will leave nothing for our kids, and even a scratch can become deadly. Please remember that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your informative insights. Antimicrobial resistance is a rising phenomenon being witnessed all across the globe. but especially in India, it has a very high rate. It is essential for all the medicos to be alert about it. Thank you, sir, once again for guiding us on this important topic.
Now, I kindly request Dr. Dantkale ma'am to please come on stage and present Dr. Navjeet Singh sir with a token of appreciation. Moving on, we welcome you to be a part of an engaging panel discussion. Good evening, everyone. Being in the medical field, most of us have an innate yearning to constantly acquire more and more consciousness about life and what drives it. There is a constant urge of not wanting to stop learning. So, what after MBBS?
Ever since the day we step into a medical college, we want to have our post-MBBS plans sorted. But with an endless confusion surrounding the question, need PG or next? Which branch is more promising? College rankings and whatnot. The ever-expanding competition that comes with entrances might even make one doubt about continuing on the same way, or to start looking for alternative options, or to start with the clinical practice right away.
The perplexity escalates with the consideration of moving abroad for further education. And at times, some of us even consider switching to a non-medical path altogether. So, to put an end to this brain drain and uncertainty about what after MBBS, today we have a team of experts to guide us, to introduce us to an array of career options to choose from, and to help us make the best choice for ourselves. The theme for today's panel discussion is, why did I choose my career? With that, let's welcome our panelists for today.
Dr. Amjad Syed sir, Dr. Shirish Kumtekar sir, Dr. Yuvraj Mane sir, and Dr. Pushpa Agarwal ma'am. I request all of them to come up on the dais. Dr. Amjad Syed sir has 20 years of experience in patient care, 4 years of experience in specialty of internal medicine anesthesia and chest and TB in patient care, and teaching at Dr. VM Government Medical College and Hospital, Solapur, and many more achievements like this. He has published many papers and presented as well in national annual conferences.
Dr. Shirish Kumtekar sir is one of the most well-known oncologists in the city. Countless patients have placed immense trust in him and his practice over the last many years.
Dr. Yuvraj Mane sir is among the finest general physicians in the city and is widely known for offering excellent patient care.
Dr. Pushpa Agarwal ma'am, Head, Department of Anesthesiology, Dr. VMGMC Solapur, has been guiding students and helping them excel for many, many years now. So I would request all the panelists to start with the panel discussion, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, all the organizers of Medalium. It is indeed very refreshing incidents, I must say, to meet young undergraduates because I left my medical college, VM Medical College, way back in 1982 when I did my Master of Surgery, and then moved on to study further for cancer surgery. In those days, surgical oncology was not the term coined, and there was no super specialty degree as such. So I went ahead and worked in Tata Memorial in a residency program and got myself finished up and decided to come back to Solapur. There was a Siddheshwar Cancer Hospital in those days. It is even now there. And I started out the surgical oncology department because by that time, only radiation was available and the surgical department was not existing. So I had the opportunity to initiate that department over there. But very soon I found out that working with trust hospital or working with somebody else's hospital, it is better that I should have my own hospital. And in those days, I come from a middle class background. My father was a teacher. So funding was a big problem in way back in 1986 and all that era. Banks were not very keen to give you loans and all these things. So I decided to move out of the country. I went to Saudi Arabia. I worked in Riyadh Military Hospital for 3 years as a specialist consultant. My wife, who is a pathologist, she also came with me. My son, who is now an oncosurgeon, he was also with me. So for 3 years, I had a good opportunity to work with the international community and the best of the techniques and technology that was available at par with USA in those days. And then after 3 years, I decided to come back because whichever country you go, you are alive. You are treated as a foreigner. It is best to come back to your own country and best to come back to your own roots. So that's how I came back and then rented out a hospital and then had my own hospital in Solapur. It was a long journey to pay back the loan of 40 lakh rupees that I had taken in those days. Now, I'm sure Amjad must have gone into crores, but in those days, it used to happen in lakhs. But 40 lakh was a huge amount in 1996, back those days. But with sincere and good work, and if your knowledge and practice is sound, you can surmount those difficulties. But these are not the days. Now, the era in which you are going to go are the days for super specialty, for good practice, and for joining corporate hospitals. Because medicine has no more remained a profession. It has become a professional business. Let us understand this. Now, you will be surprised to know that even after having acquired a good super specialty degree, you may not be chosen on quality alone. Quality is not the only criteria in our country to be chosen for a particular job. You must definitely have merit. You must have definitely chosen the right super specialty or the right branch. And then you must have the right ecosystem, political system around to get into that place and to adhere to that place. So whole medicine has become corporatized now. Your generation will come into practice in next 5-10 years. And by that time, the entire scenario would have changed. The hospital that I built and I own now, or Amjad owns, Yuvraj is fortunate to have his own practice. So he's happy with that. And I'm very glad that he is one person who has stood the test of time, that doing family medicine is extremely possible, it's beneficial, and you can be successful in doing family medicine. There is DNB in family medicine available. Why you people don't opt out for that, I don't understand. But you should think about that. Why family practice or general practitioner should only be BMS and BHMS? Why an MBBS man doesn't dare to go into family practice? The answer, when I tried to think about this, I found out that we people are running after getting postgraduate degrees and super specialties. But the problem is that your aptitude and your liking is not considered in whatever the tests that you undergo for selection. For example, there is a postgraduate selection test, PG set. But your choice is not considered. Your marks are considered. What marks you get will decide your specialty. You want to become a surgeon and you get such marks that you end up getting into some medicine or some skin and video and that sort of thing. So that is one of the biggest fallacies in today's examination. What I personally feel is that the PG set should be taken into two streams. That is PG set for surgical streams and PG set for medical streams. And from that, then people can be filtered out into whatever branch they like. And this demand should come from students' side. In our country, unfortunately, bureaucrats decide on how the examinations will be taken. And your marks decide where you will go or where you will end up. Your liking, your aptitude, a surgeon becomes a physician becomes a surgeon, and then the entire lifetime is lost and ruined because they had never had that aptitude to do that sort of job, because it requires 24/7 attention. It requires hard work. It requires stamina, and you have to be alert and responsive to the sentiments of the public and the patients who come to you. So let us now, just where I came in, I was listening to the lecture given by, I don't remember gentleman's name, but he was talking about newer techniques in microbiology and whatever they available. So medicine is becoming more and more technicalized. It is dependent on technology. But please remember that clinical medicine still holds the ground. Spend more time in wards. Spend more time with the patients. Even if there is nobody to take your clinics, don't worry. Go into the wards. Take out the papers, read the papers. See, basically postgraduate and undergraduate studies in professional courses is self-help program. Teachers are there to guide you. They are not there to teach you. You must understand this. There is no more spoon feeding. Spoon feeding was available till 12th standard. But after the 12th standard, once you enter professional courses, you are supposed to learn on your own. Spend more time in libraries, more time in wards, more time in theaters. And that is the way you will learn the things. Teachers might come and they teach you, but how much amount of reading you do, how much amount of patience you have got and stamina you got to acquire knowledge will decide your future. Jaisi sangat, vaisi rangat, vaisi pangat. You decide with whom you are moving around. You must be focused. See, focus is the first important word that you must remember while pursuing your medical career. You must be focused on what you want to become. Then you must have your dream diary. Say, if I stand up, gentlemen, please stand up. Tell me your 5 dreams. No, he's puzzled now. Because I am the first person to ask him his dreams. His mother, father have never asked him, his teachers have never asked him, his friends have never asked him. Please sit down. So before you go to sleep today, make your own dream diary. You know why dreams are important? Human being is the only person on earth who can dream, who has the capability to dream. But dreams don't come into reality unless you write them down with your own handwriting. Putting your dream in a computer board is of no use, computer screen, because that's virtual, it doesn't exist. Make a diary, write it down, put a date on it. So the simple formula for success is dream plus date is equal to goal. Write down your dream, put a date on it, and then stay focused on it. Be persistent, be consistent. Failures are going to teach you some lessons. And out of failures, you're going to learn and you're going to get more experience and more better. So failures don't matter. Even if you fail in certain examination, if you don't want to go ahead, if you don't feel like going ahead, decide again, step back, take a step backwards, and then decide and then focus. But do write down your dreams. What do you want to become? Where you want to practice? What type of girl or boy you want to marry? Yes, you can also write that also. You can choose your husband and wife just by writing your dream. Just write a dream, my husband or my wife. And the dream should be written in present tense. I am a cardiologist. I am an endocrinologist. It should be written into present tense and a date has to be put on it. I can tell you a simple example how it happens. Whenever there are arranged marriages that take place, the boy sees the girl sees the boy, the two families meet. But this alone doesn't progress into marriage. The marriage function has to be printed on an invitation card. The date and time is printed and then the marriage takes place. When you buy a plot of land, hospital doesn't automatically get selected. The architect draws it on a board, then you suggest him changes, then you tell the engineer that this is the date by which it should be ready. Unless you give the date, it won't be completed. So date is also important and writing down on paper is also important. So remember these things. Dream plus date is a goal and that will get you to your success. Write down your dreams, stay focused. This is the right time to choose where you want to go, what is your aptitude, where you would like to practice. It is not necessary that everybody should go to metro towns. There are tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, and they are also developing. So you can focus on those areas where you want to go. And please remember, gentlemen, money is not the end point. You should not run after money. Money should run after you. Practice in the most ethical way, the best possible way, and in an honest way. Don't try to take any shortcuts. Every shortcut will cut you short. So please understand this. Now, with these words, I would ask Amjad to take over and carry out and speak out his thoughts about all these things. Thank you, sir.
So wonderful talk by Dr. Kumtekar sir. Here are all my teachers, Dr. Agarwal madam, Dr. Prasad sir, and Dr. Kumtekar sir. I am their student. I got a call to talk on the topic of discussion is why I want to become a doctor or what I should choose in life to be after taking medicine probably. That is the topic, right? So we all know our forefathers have mentioned in the books that there is no greater opportunity for a human being than to become a physician. So everybody must have read this few words. So it still holds true. Though we have come all the way from art of medicine to commerce of medicine nowadays, but still the old formula of having art of medicine and empathy holds true for your success. It is key to success. Though initially patients were patients, now they are customers. Because I have been through all government jobs, then private practice at present. So I want to share with you, and in fact, I want to ask you, I believe these are all undergraduate, right? So yeah, still to choose our career. So first of all, I would like to ask one of you or two of you, why you wanted to become a doctor. Then I'll tell you few of my stories in between. I don't want to tell the whole story, but relevant things. So any volunteer to tell why he wanted to become a doctor, how he chose this profession? Any volunteer? Anybody? There must be, I am very sure, there must be few of you, at least 50% of you must have chosen by choice. Because nowadays, it is not by choice sometimes, even though from my case, it is not by choice. I've been pushed. Nobody? Yeah, good.
Well, it's basically about personal interest and an aptitude towards the field. And also there is the satisfaction of treating a patient and watching them go back home cured. So I think it's basically about the personal satisfaction that this field ultimately brings us.
Great. I think this should be the most of the us in our time, we used to be very get this thing by Of course, I have to see around myself some general practitioners, though would be think very great about them. People used to respect them, any functions, any gatherings. A doctor is respected so much. And I've seen many doctors not attending their family functions, but taking care of patients. And it was thought that it's something different. So that was a thing. But now things have changed. I don't know, but I'm not sure about the undergraduate, but postgraduate, before post-graduation, most of the doctors are like they calculate where I'm going to settle, or what is the deficiency there, how many specialists are there, which specialization will work well. What I would suggest you to not to go with these. Of course, there should be some rationally to take your super specialization or a specialization after your MBBS, but then your inner will, where you can excel, you know very well. But choosing any branch, like if I tell you my story, but my father was a medical representative and he wanted me to become a doctor. So ultimately I was pushed into, then of course I developed the interest. And from the beginning, second year of my first day of my clinical posting, I came across with a cardiologist, even though he was a retired AFMC cardiologist. And he used to teach me murmurs and all those things. So I was so much interested, I thought I'll become a cardiologist. But it was a long journey. After MBBS, then it was difficult to get into even MD medicine. I did 1 year MD anesthesia. Madam knows, she was my PG teacher in anesthesia. Then I got into medicine. Then I went for cardiology. So those days, my thought was only murmur, some diagnosis, and I didn't know that I am going to do angioplasty in the future. I didn't know that point of time. So now it is not the case. You know, you are focused. So it took me like for 3 years of super specialization, I worked 5 years more to get into that course. So it took 7 to 8 years to become a cardiologist. But then I wanted to become that only. That was this thing. So nowadays it is not like that, because the life is very fast. People want to finish the course, come into the practice, and settle early, all those things. But I remember one brigadier I met after my MBBS. I was trying to get into PG and wrote an exam. I was getting MD pathology. I left it actually, but I happened to meet him. I asked him, he asked me, why you want to become a physician? So I said, I'm very much interested in medicine and I want to treat patients. What kind of a job you want to do? I want to treat patients. I want to be very happy if I could diagnose a thing and treat properly. Patient will be relieved. What will do? Private practice or government? So by that time, I think I have worked for 6 months in government hospital. And I actually am from a private medical college, in government quota. I did from DY Patil. So I saw the difference in the private hospital and the government hospital very early in my life. So I thought government probably is not the thing, because things are not advanced. I would go for a private practice. So he told me, do you know what is the best way to serve as a doctor? I said, maybe private practice, because they could do all the complex procedures and they can go to the top. Maybe government setup does a, but he told me, in what way you want to? You want to be a very good human being, a very good physician at heart, and be empathetic about your patient. Do you have do you want to earn huge money? I said, probably money is not an issue at all, but then definitely I would like to earn. So he said, I will tell you to do a job, because he told me, if you do a job, it is a fixed salary. You're not biased. Okay, because at the end of the month, 1 month, whatever you do, you'll get fixed amount of money. As against that, a private practitioner like me, the more I work, more I get, even money and fame, whatever it is. So sometimes you are biased to get more money and fame. You might deviate from your original aim. So he told me that private practice, better to have a job, either government, AFMC, army, any job where you are fixed salaried, so then you can serve people properly. So this is the probably time to really think, because nowadays things are totally different. I believe in next 10 years or 15 years, our health system will totally change, because we are so many specialists coming into. When I started competing for a DM cardiology, that time the whole India has only 46 seats and DNB some 60 seats within 100 number. Now we have 600 cardiology seats in India. It is only a matter of 10 years back. So similarly, even your MBBS seats. So I believe in 10 years or 15 years down the line, all doctors will be employed because the small setups are dying, corporates are coming in. It is not possible to give all services under one small hospital, under one roof. So you probably 10, 15, 20 years down the line, you all will land up in doing fat salary jobs and 8 to 10 hours daily job. That will be really ideal because we overexert ourselves doing 24/7 work. We call it as we are workaholic. We call it as that we are gods, we're dummy gods, because people say we are God and we spoil our life. What I would suggest you should be very focused. Somebody is really energetic and he wants to do it. He should plan a clinical subject. And somebody is really, you should identify your own interest and your own capacity and your own inclination and your family background as well to plan your super specialization or a specialization. Because in clinical branches like general medicine or cardiology or neurosurgery, most of the surgeries, surgical and emergency branches drains a lot because you have to exert a lot. Of course, you in that this thing you get more money and more fame probably, but then you have to choose from the beginning. And this is the probable time you should think of what exactly, as sir told, what exactly you want to place yourself in the society. And wherever you want to, the most important thing is the basic aim should be benefiting your patients, your customers. If you give better service and you satisfy them, that is the only key to success. And other logistics probably can be arranged for you by anybody else or yourself. But then the most important is the how, because in India, you must have heard, some doctor is very famous, a lot of patients are with him because he talks very sweet. It is very unfortunate. Only talking sweet is not sufficient in a scientific this thing era now. But then you should have this art also. So you should be a multitasker to become a successful doctor. It's not the subject. It is not the gold medal. It is not the spot diagnosis. It is not the advanced technology. It is not nothing. One thing is not sufficient. It is all multifactorial. And I think you should think of all these factors. Suppose you want to become a pathologist. You should think whether you are destined for a job or you have sufficient funds to get all the gadgets. Like I was saying, going through now so many like equipments, start your own business. That days have come that probably this is the time you to think also. For my time, I have never thought of anything till I finished my cardiology. I never knew that I'm going to come to Solapur because most of the time in 17 years of my journey of my learning medicine, I was away from Solapur. So I was not destined to come back. But then I landed here. And one more thing I want to tell you, whatever you plan, your plan always should be flexible, should be. Your baseline should be definitely there, but you have to slightly change your plan according to the opportunities which come. But your basic characters, basic ideas, basic values should never change. Because once you think that you are going this way, that should not change. For example, for me, to get into cardiology, it took 5 years after my MD medicine. All those 5 years, I was earning only 15,000 rupees stipend, and it was very difficult for me to sustain my family and my kid and everybody. But still 5 years I slogged to get into cardiology. Then I got it. Probably this time also this is possible. But then it depends how your intention is to go for a particular thing. So my suggestion for all of you to choose any branch will be your inner voice and your some basic plan. Because whatever you plan, you will do that way. It is not necessary. Things will probably not fall into the line at that point of time. You should always have a plan A and B, and then you can proceed. Anything if anybody has any queries, you can ask me. Because this all I think we are talking about how to choose the career, why to choose the career. Why to choose also very important. And today, things have totally changed. The government setup and the private sector or a trust hospitals. These are the options you have. Initial days from the Britishers when they left, we have only government institutions, and all higher studies used to be done in the government institutes, and whatever few equipments required for the treatment of patients were there only in that institutes. But slowly, two things happened. One, there were a lot of the jobs were saturated, and then we required a lot of new gadgets, but probably after independence, our government was not able to provide. So the private sector came in, and now we trust more in a private sector only because they are more equipped and the practice is slightly different. We have some restrictions in the government. Of course, if you want to become an academician, probably private practice is not the thing we should choose, because it takes a lot of time, and government job or any semi-government job, probably a medical college job, will more satisfy you as an academician. And these two things probably you should, from the beginning, you should decide, because everything has pros and cons and everything has its own importance. If I'll tell you, in our Cardiology Society of India, we go to conferences. We have all senior cardiologists and like all stalwarts in cardiology, all we can say leaders in cardiology. Out of 10, 3 to 4 will be some from a medical college HODs. They are still leaders. It doesn't mean that some cardiologist is earning some crores of rupees and having a big hospital, he becomes a very intelligent or a very academic person. So any field you choose, you can go to the top. And that should be the aim, rather than choosing a particular branch. And you can go to the top in any branch, may it be any subject or any subspecialty of medicine, you can excel. And you have to plan your career according to the availability also. That is also one factor. Any queries or any just? Acha, okay. I think I will invite Dr. Yuvraj next.
Hello friends, I'm Dr. Yuvraj Mane, doing general practice since last 22 years. Here I am to share some thoughts and experiences of general practice. This may help you in your future career. After completion of internship, what comes in mind is what next? Shall I proceed to PG NEET, or just I will start my general practice or practice in my area? See, there is another option that you can go to government hospital as a medical officer, but that is a different aspect. After completion of MBBS degree, why should I go for general practice? There are lots of reasons for that. First and foremost reason is your family background is ready to accept you for next 3 to 4 years for again studying for the PGs. And also, can your family bear your all the expenses when you are studying the PGs? Moreover, are you really sure that the things will go accordingly when you will study and get the PG degree? And then after, are you really interested in that subject or that degree? Which are you getting after your PGs? You should be confident on your MBBS degree after completing internship, that you can go for general practice. And also, some students come from the remote area, villages. The need of their villages or their area and the interest of that people, and looking towards you that you can do something for them after completing your MBBS. और सबसे बड़ी बात जो है कि सब भाग रहे हैं, दौड़ में भाग रहे हैं, हर कोई पहले नंबर पे पहुंचना चाहता है, लेकिन बैच में थोड़े लोग ऐसे भी रहते हैं कि जो एवरेज है. यानी मेरा एक्सपीरियंस में बोल सकता हूं कि जब हम फार्माकोलॉजी जब पढ़ते थे, जब हमारे सेकेंड ईयर के मार्क निकलते थे, तो हम वहीं देखते थे 3 इडियट्स जैसा 50% है, हाँ ओके, दैट इज गुड, दैट वी आर एमिंग दैट 50% आ गए ना, तो 10 लोग ही ऐसे रहते हैं कि जिन्हें 70% चाहिए रहते हैं, लेकिन जो लोग रहते हैं 60% वाले, उन्हें डिसीजन लेना पड़ता है कि हम क्या करेंगे, तो उनको आज मैं रिप्रेजेंट कर रहा हूं. Now, after discussing all these facts, you have to become a good doctor. What qualities should be there in a general practitioner, good general practitioner? The first and foremost, that the general practitioner must be having a good communication skill. Because your language speaks a lot. आज तो मैं इंग्लिश में बात कर रहा हूं आपसे, लेकिन हिंदी में भी बात कर रहा हूं, क्योंकि मैं एक जनरल प्रैक्टिशनर हूं और मुझे हर कोई लैंग्वेज में बात करना पड़ता है. मेरे पास 100 लोग आते हैं दिन में, और उनकी हर एक की लैंग्वेज अलग है, हर एक का टेम्पो अलग है, और हर एक की बताने की एक्सप्लेन करने की जो पावर रहती है वो अलग रहती है. A good general practitioner should develop his communication skills very neatly. And you should be polite, you should be calm, and not to be panic. देखिए, जो पेशेंट आ रहा है आपके पास, जो पेशेंट आपके ओपीडी में आ रहा है, he is having something trouble, and आप ही उसको गुस्सा करेंगे, आप ही आपका गुस्सा निकालेंगे, और आप उसको ऐसा दिखाएंगे कि मैं आपसे कुछ तो बढ़कर हूं, तो ये उसके लिए अच्छा नहीं है और आपके लिए भी अच्छा नहीं है. So you should be calm, you should be a good listener. आप उसे सुनिए, आप उसकी मन की बात सुनिए, उसको वो क्या बताना चाहता है, उसकी कुछ बीमारी के कुछ सिम्टम्स है, वो आप बता रहा है, वो आप अच्छी तरह से सुनेंगे तो आप उसको एक्सप्लेन अच्छा, उसको ट्रीट अच्छा कर सकेंगे. और एक बात जो है जनरल प्रैक्टिशनर की, you have to apply your knowledge very fast and with very short period of time, because the patient expects from you that he should get good treatment in a very short period of time. As a general practitioner, आप जब बैठेंगे क्लिनिक में, तो जब एक पेशेंट जब आपके पास आएगा, तो वो बोलेगा कि सर मुझे 2 दिन में अच्छा कर दो. अब जो आप सुन रहे हैं, जो देख रहे हैं, 2 दिन में रिपोर्ट्स भी आने में वक्त लगेगा. आप उसको 1 दिन में कैसे ट्रीटमेंट देंगे, ये आपको सोचना भी पड़ेगा, उसको डायग्नोस करना पड़ेगा, उसको सेटिस्फाइड भी करना पड़ेगा, और यू हैव टू गिव हिम assurance that he will be good and he will feel better in 2 days. So you have to develop your knowledge also, and you have to treat him also. A good doctor should be a very good actor also, because lots of people coming to him with different type of moods and different types of languages. So a good doctor should be a very good actor also. अगर आप कन्नड़ बोल नहीं सकते, अगर आप सोलापुर में रह रहे हैं, आप एक्सपीरियंस करते होंगे शायद, अभी क्लिनिक में बैठते हैं वीएम सिविल हॉस्पिटल में, लॉट ऑफ पीपल टॉकिंग इन कन्नड़, हिंदी, अदर तेलुगु, आपको उनकी भाषा समझ में नहीं आती, लेकिन वो क्या कहना चाहते हैं ये आप समझ सकते हैं. तो you should be a good actor, that you should pretend that you are listening to him and you are getting what he is saying. That will give him a good satisfaction also. So a doctor should be a good actor also. And this is one more important point, that as this is a very noble profession, he or she must protect her character by maintaining social life, by in a proper dignified way, and social life will be secured by him, so that your patient can feel good when he's seeing you. He will see you outside in the OPDs or on the area in the university. Now coming to the next point, how to choose the proper place for your consulting. your consulting should be situated on the main road of your area or your city or your where you are taking the decision to start your OPD. It should be placed on the main area or the sub road where it is attached to the main road. Okay. And the consulting room should having at least 3 rooms of appropriate sizes and with good ventilation. Okay. There may be a proper waiting room for the patient. There must be a proper consulting room for your own, and there should be a examination room where you can carry out the minor procedures also. Okay. You can attach a medical stores also with your OPD, and that can help your patient to give prompt and proper treatment. And this may help one of your family member to go at a good job also. You can arrange a pathology lab near to your consulting or the in patient's waiting room area also. About the staff, you can take one receptionist, and you can go with a assistant staff also who can help in your daily routine and who can maintain your daily records also. Friends, general practitioner is the first person whom the patient can explain his complaints, and general practitioner should also listen to the complaints and can guide him in his treatment or give him a proper suggestions. Number of families are attached with the general practitioners. Thus, the general practitioner is the first helping hand to them. If there are number of good general practitioners in certain area, they can provide good health services, and ultimately the health standard will be maintained of that city. In last pandemic, there were lack of good general practitioners, due to which number of hospitalization of the patients increased. General practitioner is the basic need of the society. They are now not only the symptomatic relievers, but they are the first line warriors of the saving lives. Last but not the least, general practitioner can earn not only good source of income, but they can also win the heart of the patients and 1,000 families forever and ever. So friends, कीमती है जिंदगी, जिंदगी तुझको अपना सलाम, लाख दुखों की है दवा खुशी, और खुशी देना ही अपना काम. Thank you.
I think give a big clap for Kumtekar sir, Amjad sir, and Nuraj sir. Because they have guided you in a different ways. Okay. And as a Harsh Agarwal told me that, Madam, you also guide in some other way also. Because now they have told you in what we have to choose career. Okay. The first I will ask the question, all of you. How many of you are having a stress before exam from second, third, that is up 5th mein the, 10th mein the? How many of you? 11th, 12th, first year, second year, third year. Okay, clap for yourself, because ये problem मुझे भी था. Give a big clap for you. See, for each and every exam I used to cry. घर में पूरा problem, कोई बात नहीं करना चाहिए. My family, that is a big family, sir, knows that. My elder brother is a surgeon, and my cousin brothers and all the 10, 15 families, we are living together, and पूरे हमारे माहौल में किसी ने बात नहीं करना. क्यों? पुष्पा की एग्जाम है. And for each exam, after the exam, I used to come first. In 5th, I was first, 7th, I was first, 10th, I was first. Maths, I was gold medal. Everything that was happening, but each and every time there was a stress. 11th, 12th, same thing happened. First year MBBS, I was first in anatomy. I was second in the physiology, but there was stress. My whole life was going in a stress and stress and stress and stress. And imagine that at the time of MD, that is MBBS exam, there was an exam for medicine. And some I had told about that is cyanosis, that is bluish eyes. Examiner told, Madam, just up एक ही answer do, I will give 100 out of 100. And I was knowing the answer, but because of the stress, I couldn't answer. So see, even Stanford University has told that to be a success, apart from your hard skill, soft skill is very, 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 very important. 30% hard skill is required, but 70% soft skill is required. And where sir had already told that communication is required, confidence is required, and clarity in the mind is required. So these are the three things they have told us, that confidence in your subject is required. There should be a clarity, and you have communicated with your patient. You should able to communicate with your seniors. You are able to communicate with your teachers. You should able to communicate with your colleagues and your junior, your patients. And apart from, if you are starting hospital, then your class 1 to class 2 and class 3, and so many people are there. Our problem is that we are not developing all these soft skill. And because of that, there's a lot of stress factor is there. You see, the lot of energy is required into all those things. If energy is not there, I feel dull. I can't read. I can't produce. I can't treat patient also. I sir said that, you would have said that general practitioner. See, I'm anesthesiologist, but still I'm general practitioner. Why? Your family, they don't want anesthesiologist. They want general practitioner, right, sir? I'm a general practitioner for my mother, my father, my brother, my neighbors. So this is your basic. You can't say that I'm cardiologist. I can't do this one. See, still I'm an anesthesiologist. My family members ask about some obstetric problems. They ask gynec problem. Sometimes they ask cardiac problem. Some about poison, everything. They ask everything and they expect everything. They expect that I should manage critical patient at home. They expect that once you enter in MBBS first degree, your family member says that my child is doctor. And they are expecting a lot of from you. Similarly, when you go in society, other people are also expecting from you too much. That may be beyond your capacity also. So that you have to tackle very nicely. How I become a doctor, that is a, you can say tragedy also or accident also. I was very good in mathematics, 100 out of 100. I was getting engineering, but my family were, at that time there was no engineering college in Solapur, sir. And my family was not ready to send me outside the Solapur. So option was medical. And in the family also, when I, after the exams, 12th exams, when I come at home, my father used to ask, how was the paper? Yeah, paper was good. I never said that I will get 100 out of 100, 95 out of 100, something like that. I do remember at that time also, in the physics, I got 95 out of 100. I need that 80 out of it in theory and practical 15 out of 20. And where these 5 marks were gone, that was because my stress factor only. Because in a line, the one person in front of me, second number was absent. And when they called me, I went there. And everything was confused. And that created a stress factor, vicious cycle. And that reflected everything. Even I was a very good in practical. I used to do a practical very good throughout my first, that is complete whole year. In the final exam, I lose my 5 marks. So same thing is going to happen. So yeah, Thus, you have to think. Sir said that there should be clarity in your mind. What you want, what is your goal, what is your final goal, what are your short time goals. Goals are going to be changed sometimes, right? So you have to think on that. You have to decide. When I entered in MBBS, I never decided that I will go for the anesthesia. My brother was surgeon. Definitely, he would have been guide me. You go for the surgery. They were asking me at the time of applying for the PG. You apply for the OBG or you apply for the OBG. I was getting diploma in OBG. But when I came here, I never showed my form to my brother, elder brother. I did MD anesthesia first and DA, DGO second. And was first, that is, I got MD anesthesia. I was getting surgery also. 3 of my colleagues, they got surgery also. So I choose anesthesia by my first choice. There is no question of the money. See, what you like, that is very important. If you go with the money, Reliance also is a good money. There is no need to become a doctor. You can start any business. Even Vada Pav person also having a good buildings, like Bhageshwari Vada and everything. So money is not the question. Here, when you come for the MBBS, you come here for doing PG, study for the knowledge. That should be underlined. You study for the knowledge, you will definitely good marks. And when you will get to marks, even in practice also, because you have a knowledge, your practice will be good. And if there is no stress factor, a good communication will be there. So you can manage your patient very nicely. When your results are good, with the results, 1-to-1, that is, other patients will come to you. So this is one how you become a success. But the story doesn't stop here. See, your knowledge is not for you. In a whatever intellect you have, that is not yours, that is given by the God. Everybody is not the same, but only that you have to nurture that one. To nurture that one, you have to give 100% when you are going for the study. Library में बैठे और कुछ दूसरा कर रहे हो, that is not good. And to study 100%, you have a good sleep also. You have proper food also. You have to keep your healthy body, healthy mind, healthy communication. Your relation with the society with very good, your colleagues. And then you can do very good in your career. You can choose your career. But when you choose a career, now a sir said that everything not is in your hand. That is depends upon the marks also. Only that you have to put your efforts. But in the later, if you wanted to become a surgeon and you don't get that one, and then you become an anesthesiologist, you become an obstetrician, you become a pediatrician. Now, everything that is your choice that has been gone. So don't go in a past. Now, whatever that is having in front of you, give 100% to that. Because that is your life. If you don't want it, that branch, as sir said that, so there should not be any grumbling later on. If throughout the life you are going to grumble, you cannot enjoy the life. See, here we are, this life is to enjoy in a better way. With the grumbling, with the everything, you having a 3-4 buildings and everything, and grumbling is in the life will be there. So nobody will be happy. People around will not be happy. You are making others also, that is boring. So most important part in your life is that celebrate your life. To celebrate, give 100%. Decide what you want. Every that is sir said that diary, you have to keep a diary. If you want to change the goal, you can change the goal if you want. Short time goal, that is you have to make it. So final goal, that is a big, that is good human being. With whatever you want to do 100%. We are here to give service to the society. See, Lata Mangeshkar is there and she sing very nicely. If she sing in bathroom only, what is the use of that? That is for us, no? We feel good. Similarly, whatever intellect we have, we have to nurture that one, and we have to give a society. Just anesthesiologist, see, second part of my life is that I never wanted to become a doctor first. Second, I never wanted to become don't wanted to go for the post-graduation also. Third, I don't wanted to go in government service also. I never wanted to become a HOD also, never wanted to become an administrator also. But sometimes everything is written in your life. You have to put your efforts. You have to put your efforts. If you put efforts, what is good for you, you will get in your life. That is very important. Instead of crying, go with your choice, decide your goal, put your efforts, give 100%, and whatever that is, everyone knows, this world, that is what is good for you, and definitely you will get it. See, it's very important. If you give a good service to the society, society will help you. That is very important. So in my life, I have learned this one. That is, always put your hand, give your hand to the society, your colleagues, your friends. So you will get everything. I think I covered. Anybody wants to? Anybody? Can you clap for us? This is very important. See, if I'm smiling, I feel that you also smile because I also feel good, right?
मैं हिंदी में बात करूंगा। देखिए, आप सब यूजी स्टूडेंट्स हैं। आपके घर में हमेशा कोई तो ट्रीटमेंट के लिए जाता होगा, बाहर ट्रीटमेंट लेके आता होगा। प्लीज गो थ्रू द प्रिस्क्रिप्शंस। देखिए, उसमें कुछ लिखा है, कुछ डॉक्टर ने प्रिस्क्राइब किया। Go through it, study it. You are a student, medical student. Just घर में एक चिट्ठी आई है, पढ़ी है कोने में, आप पढ़ने मुझे पढ़ाई है, मुझे पढ़ रही हूँ माँ। नहीं, आप मेडिकल स्टूडेंट्स हो, आप उसका स्टडी कीजिए, वो आपको फ्यूचर में डेफिनेटली हेल्प करेंगे, क्योंकि आप वही बनेंगे जो आप पढ़ रहे हो, आपको भी वही करना है आगे जाके। इसलिए बहुत इंटरेस्ट से काम कीजिए, आपका इंटरेस्ट बढ़ाइए इस फील्ड में। यू आर अ डॉक्टर, नॉट अ ऑर्डिनरी मैन। आप डॉक्टर हो, आप एक हेल्पिंग हैंड हो इस समाज का। तो खुद को बढ़ाओ, खुद की नॉलेज बढ़ाओ, खुद का इंटरेस्ट बढ़ाओ, और आपकी जैसी हेल्प कोई भी नहीं कर सकता इस समाज की, जितनी आप हेल्प कर रहे हैं। आपने देखा पिछले कोविड में आपको भगवान बनाया था लोगों ने, और भगवान जैसा आपको ट्रीट किया था, क्योंकि आपके पास वो नॉलेज है, आपके पास वो डिग्री है। आप उसका यूज कीजिए, आप उसमें इंटरेस्ट बढ़ाइए। एक प्रिस्क्रिप्शन भी है तो उसमें आप स्टडी कीजिए कि क्यों दिया है, क्या है इसमें, कौन सी बीमारी में दिया है, तो आपका नॉलेज अपने आप बढ़ जाएगा। क्योंकि देखिए, हर एक इंसान, हर एक फैमिली मेंबर, आपके बाजू में रहने वाले लोग आपके पास एक डॉक्टर की नजरिए से देख रहे हैं, और आपका एक दायित्व बनता है समाज के लिए कि आप उनको अच्छा और सलाह की जरूरत है उन्हें, और अच्छी ट्रीटमेंट की जरूरत है। जब तक आप खुद उसके बारे में अच्छा नहीं सोचेंगे तो आपके जहन में से अच्छा नहीं निकलेगा। सो ट्राई टू बिकम अ गुड डॉक्टर, नॉट ओनली अ डॉक्टर, गुड डॉक्टर। ओके,
Thank you, sir. I would like to thank all panelists for the guidance. Now I would ask the permission of the panelists to open the question and answer session. Audience, all your questions, kindly raise your hand. The mic will be brought to you by a representative. Questions? We have a few questions. To start, I would like to ask Yuvraj Mane, sir. As he just said, the doctors are made gods by the people, but sir, the same doctors are being beat up and killed, or even violence on the doctors. So sir, should private practitioners hire bodyguards or learn self-defense?
नो, नहीं, कभी भी नहीं। बॉडीगार्ड्स की जरूरत नहीं है। आपके लिए अच्छे और तंदुरुस्त दिमाग की जरूरत है। आपके लिए, आप अगर अच्छा सोचोगे तो आपके लिए बॉडीगार्ड्स की जरूरत नहीं है। देखिए, आप एमबीबीएस स्टूडेंट्स हो, आप सब लेकिन आप जब प्रैक्टिस में आओगे तो आपके सामने बहुत से फेक डॉक्टर्स भी आएंगे और बहुत से ऐसे सिचुएशंस भी आएंगे कि आपको भी सोचना पड़ेगा कि यार क्या ट्रीटमेंट दिया है इसने। तो जस्ट आपको खुद को बैलेंस रखना है और आपको सिर्फ पेशेंट के बारे में सोचना है, और आप अगर अच्छा उसको ट्रीट करेंगे और उसके बारे में ही सोचेंगे तो आपको बाकी की जो जरूरतें हैं उनकी जरूरत नहीं पड़ेगी। आपको सिर्फ उनके बारे में ही सोचना है, उसके अच्छे हेल्थ के बारे में सोचना है। और बॉडीगार्ड्स वगैरह तो इट्स जस्ट शो ऑफ मुझे लगता है।
Just to add to what Yuvraj said, basically the conflict arises on two problems. You are not communicating properly with the patient. Your communication has to be extremely good. Your language has to be restrained. You should not have high-handed approach towards your patient. You must be polite. You must listen to their problems. Usually the problem comes when there is a question of settling the bills. They feel that the bills are excessively charged. There is a problem. The patient has not received proper treatment. You must be able to explain them in a very calm and quiet way and a very confident way. And usually if this is handled in a very quiet and very sensible way, no question arises. But in due course of time, in corporate hospitals and particularly with high-risk branches, like what Amjad is doing in cardiology, in oncology and all these areas, we may in future need bodyguards because the society at large has become very impatient, very sensitive, and on small, simple occasions, the situation may go out of hands. So you better be prepared in future. For your generation, this may arise that you may need this type of requirement. As of today, your communication, your handling of the patients and doing the things in the right way will not provoke this type of situation.
As Yuvraj and Sir was telling, a doctor should be a very good actor. That is the most important thing, the key point here, because we are coming across a lot of violence against doctors recently. Who is responsible is a different matter of debate now. But in short, what I feel is both sides are equally responsible for that. Doctors as well as the patients and the overall society. Things have totally changed. And rather than talking very ideal about it, we should be realistic as a doctors, because especially you people, because 10 years down the line, what situation you will face, we don't know. And the more you invest in your equipments, the more you invest to give care to the society, the better you can perform and better you can serve. That is definitely there. In that process, there are the elements in the society which don't like these things rather than doctor. They are very, for example, this is my 11th years of practice in Solapur. For last 10 years, I was a chairman and director of 3 hospitals. Now, ultimately, I started my own hospital 1.5 years back. So the moment I started my own hospital, I became a devil for everybody. Till that time, I was a Masiha because they used to follow me. But the moment I started my own hospital, probably they don't like it. Till that time, I was serving them. Whenever you are at receiving end, wherever you are underdog, people like you. When you try to lead, people don't like you. So simple as where you required an assistant, a bouncer or a security person, different situations, like he's a general practitioner, he's an onco surgeon, I'm a cardiologist. So situations are different. But I'll tell you, as Sir told, doing a high risk procedure and a costly procedure, definitely you require a security backup. You may not show in terms of a bouncer or somebody standing with gun, but then you should have some plans and rescue plans for in future. Definitely it is required. So you should be. Probably this may not happen when your tongue is very sweet and your intentions are very clear and obvious and you are really caring about them. And in terms of finances, you are very clear. And in spite of you being very clear and telling them everything, we do video counseling, we get a consent, written consent. In spite of all that, patients will tell, no, you have not told that. So that is a different thing. You cannot help it. And such situation will definitely arise more and more in future. So people should really think, hospital at least are thinking to have a parallel security setups, and that is probably required.
Thank you, sir. Coming to Sirish Kumteka, sir, as you just said, the finances are an issue. So commercialization of medical field, how ethical it is? Should we charge? How much should we charge? And how to determine the fees upcoming? Because we have seen certain doctors who are charging 400, 500, and certain doctors who are charging 100 or 200. So, sir, is this just the difference in the skill, or how we determine what are our skill set?
See, usually your charges, see, nobody will complain about charges taken by an advocate for taking a simple जामीन. तुम्हारा माहिती है, आपको शायद मालूम होगा कि जब कोर्ट में किसी को पेश किया जाता है, उसको अगर रिमांड लेना है, जुडिशियल रिमांड है, उसको जामीन मिलाना है, तो एडवोकेट्स लोग 50,000 से लेके 2-2, 5-5 लाख तक फी लेते. वहां पे कोई तकरार नहीं करता. मगर हमने अगर ऑपरेशन की 15,000 से 20,000 फी की, तो लोग तकरार करते. तो how much fees you should charge usually depends upon the city and area you are practicing. See, I am practicing in Solapur and suddenly I start charging 1,000 rupees as consulting fee because I am a senior onco surgeon. Will not be suitable, will not be acceptable by the society. It should be a level playing field. A super specialist should charge in Solapur about 500 rupees. A consultant, specialist, houser, senior, I might become, I still charge 300 rupees. Well, Yuvraj Mane might be charging 100 rupees as an initial fee. And that is justified because he also must charge. On many occasions, what happens, general practitioner never charges at all. He will just charge for the drugs given or the injections given. That used to be the situation. But with people like Yuvraj, like MBBS, general practitioners coming in, we should start this practice of charging for our knowledge. Basic consultation fees must be charged. And one of the second points that I have noted in my practice is that I never take money or fees in my hand. All my patients pay the money to the receptionist. I never accept the money and put it in a drawer or something like that. No, the bills are paid outside because handling money is not my job. Handling the patient is my job. Money will be handled by somebody else, as Yuvraj rightly said. You must have a receptionist. You must have your own case paper printed. You must have your own properly designed prescription pads. You must use a unique type of pen and a unique type of ink. Use a different ink. Use a yellow ink. Use a green ink. Use a blue, not blue always. You should have your own unique signature. You know, your prescription pad is the biggest advertisement that goes out to the world. So your prescription paper has to be of good quality. Your handwriting has to be readable. Don't ever give computerized prescriptions. In my opinion, they don't work. Those drugs don't work. You must write down your own prescription. Be very sincere about writing down your notes and time. When the patient comes, please enter the date and the time when the patient has visited. Because they are going to be important documentary evidences if at all some medical legal question arises. So never be afraid or never be lethargic about writing with your own hands. Be ready for that. Be ready for doing a lot of clerical work. And as he was asking me, the fees are decided in the city you live, about the type of investment that you have done, the type of hospital that you are providing, the type of care that you are providing. In a multi-speciality, multi-bedded super specialty hospital, the initial fee might be 1,000 rupees. When you go to Dinanath Mangeshkar Hospital, the consultant fees is 2,000 rupees. Nobody will ask any question. But that is the situation out there. If you create that show, people will pay. You come to Balaji Sarovar, you pay for lunch 800 to 1,000 rupees. Whereas dal chawal on Vijapur Road is available for 20 rupees.
Yes.
So it depends upon what type of practice you are doing.
Yes.
I think we should not be very emotional about we are charging because it is like it's you're doing a private practice. It's your like there is no other thing you do in life.
Yeah.
So you have to be while to keep the amount what you charge should be, as sir said, it should be depending on the community where we are practicing. You cannot charge out of the way to anybody, but you should not undercharge, and charges should be fixed. The fixed, you understand, wherever you must be going for shopping, fixed rate. You believe more. It's a fixed rate, though it must be genuine. So your charges should be fixed rather than changing. That is very important because that gives a very clear message that you have baseline. Of course, those charges can be waived off for many people who are poor or in situation like your relatives, your colleagues. So whatever ethics comes in about the money, you can definitely change it. But your charges should be very fixed, and you should not be ashamed of that you are charging, you're taking money, because that is your profession and you are working for that. So that we should be a pride to say that my fees is more than somebody else because I am very senior and I have been slogged those days and I see differently. Because as sir said, advocate will charge so much and everybody charges differently. So it is a personal skill that is sold. And legally also, in medicine, recently government has tried to crash the whole private system by so-called capping everything. But one thing they couldn't do it, that is a professional skill. They couldn't cap the fees of a doctor. Fees in terms of a OPD fees, or it may be a procedural fees like a operation or procedure, that cannot be capped. The moment that will be capped, probably we will sue the government and government will have to listen to us.
I think the most important part is the mentality of the people. That is them. They can go in a beauty parlor, they can go in a Balaji Sarovar, they can pay everything. But when come for the appendectomy, the doctor should do 50% charges. Beauty parlor, even they can say, I can pay more than this, but do very nicely again. You are ready to pay more. Right?
Yes.
You can go for the shoes. 1,000 or 2,000, 5,000. Who is going to look at your shoes? But health is more important than that. That is very important. You have to tell your patients. Health is very important.
I think the problem is because, see, whatever you get free of cost, you are afraid to pay for that. दोस्तों इस दुनिया में सिर्फ 6 चीजें मुफ्त में मिलती है. मेरी इसका स्टडी के इसलिए मैं बोल रहा हूँ. जो सांस ले रहे हैं वो हवा मुफ्त में है. बाहर जो धूप है वो मुफ्त में है. आपके माँ बाप आपको मुफ्त में मिले. उन्होंने तुम्हारी बॉडी तुमको मुफ्त में दी. अपने देश में हम जैसे मर्दों को बीवी मुफ्त में मिलती है. और हमारा देश राय बहादुरों का देश है. कोई भी के किसके हुए की सलाह देता है. राय बहादुरों का देश है. राय बहादुर. तो जो चीज मुफ्त में मिलती है उसकी हमें कीमत नहीं रहती. अब इसलिए लोगों को दुख होता है कि जब आते हैं उनको जब स्टिचेस लेना है, सर्जरी करना है, इंजेक्शन लेना है, तो उसके कैसे पैसे मुफ्त में मिला है ना, तो उसकी कीमत दे उसको. तो मैं उसको हमेशा एक एग्जांपल करके दिखाता हूँ कि हर्ष, आप हर्ष हो ना?
यस सर.
हर्ष जैसा कौन बनेगा करोड़पति खेल चलता है,
यस सर.
वैसा हम 2 मिनट खेलेंगे यहाँ पे.
यस सर.
मैं आपको 1 करोड़ का चेक देता हूँ.
ओके.
आपसे छोटा सा काम करना है, आपका एक आंख निकाल के मुझे दे दो.
नो सर.
चलो हम 5 करोड़ कर देते.
नो
5
सर.
करोड़ का चेक देता हूँ, एक आंख निकाल के दे दो.
नो सर.
देखो अभी हर्ष की एक आंख की कीमत 1 से 5 करोड़ में नहीं हो रही है, तो पूरे हर्ष की कीमत क्या होगी? समझिए आप. तो ये लोगों को समझता नहीं, और इसलिए लोगों को बड़ा दुख होता है जब खुद के इलाज करने को लिए पैसे डालने का टाइम आ जाता है, तो उन्हें बड़ा दुख हो जाता है. That's what she was trying to convey.
We take our bodies for granted.
और एक बात, आप जब आपके क्लिनिक में बैठे हो तो प्लीज ज्यादा रिलेटिव्स को अलाउड मत कीजिए अंदर आने की. क्योंकि एक रिलेटिव ठीक है, 2 या 3 रिलेटिव्स आ जाते हैं, उसमें से बहुत ज्यादा दिमाग वाला रहता है, होशियार, बहुत ज्यादा सर. वो मोबाइल निकाल के देखता है क्या बात कर रहे हैं आप, और वो खुद क्या डायग्नोसिस बना देता है. और हम पेशेंट्स को जस्ट एग्जाम कर रहे हैं, सर इसको अटैक तो नहीं आया. अरे भाई चेक करने दे, अभी पूरा होने दो. तो ये जो प्रॉब्लम्स है, ये प्रॉब्लम्स आप खुद ही टैकल कर सकते हैं। आप अगर अच्छा इंस्टीट्यूशन बना रहे हैं, आप अच्छे स्टाफ मेंटेन कर रहे हैं, तो देखिए डॉक्टर हमेशा एक सॉफ्ट टारगेट रहा है समाज के लिए। जो भी फटे हुए नोट है, कलर लगाई हुई चीजें है, नोट है, सब डॉक्टर के लिए बने, ऐसे मुझे लगता है। निकाल कर लाते हैं देने के लिए। So you should be wise enough. You should tell your receptionist, don't take that notes. क्योंकि ये जो मानसिकता है डॉक्टर के बारे में, क्या यार इसको क्या कम है, इसके पास तो बहुत है। बेटे हमने 6 साल गुजारे हैं, हमने यहाँ, हम सोते नहीं है महीना है ना, मंथ हम सोते नहीं है। तो आज एक मोबाइल निकाल कर मेरे एजुकेशन के बारे में मुझे सवाल नहीं कर सकता। मैंने मेरी जिंदगी गंवाई है, मेरी जिंदगी के 7 साल दिए है इस फील्ड के लिए, तब मैं यहाँ आके बैठा हूँ। यू शुड रिस्पेक्ट योरसेल्फ आल्सो, ओके?
Anyone from the audience? Yes, my colleague Saad.
Good evening, everyone. So the theme of the conference was like promoting research mentality in medical students. So, sir, I wanted to ask, what is the scope of research in private clinical practice?
There's a lot of scope of research even in private practice, because of course the government institutions, you have a structured program for research and government funding and something, but private practice, especially the pharma companies nowadays, they have their own R&D departments, and they have a lot of funds for research. And as a patient pool, if you see the private setups have large number of patients and more systematic records and more systematic way to approach research. So a lot of research is being done in the private sector nowadays rather than a government setup. So as a practitioner, you want to be in research. So you have to be associated with such a hospital or a center where the research is going on. As a totally solely private or single practitioner, probably it may not be feasible. But then if you are attached to institutions wherein there is a team of doctors who are working, having teaching activities, whatever the diplomas or degrees or DNBs or CPS, those kind of a thing, such hospitals will have a cell, research cell, and there will be definitely some pharma-D, 1 or 2 pharma-D people who are sitting there, and they organize all this research. So there's definitely a scope in the research, even after, totally private practice. Of course, if you're in a government setup, you have more opportunities, a more systematic way to go about it. But then they have their own restrictions. I hope.
So I fully agree with Dr. Amjad. In private setup, you can comfortably do research of whatever way you decide to be. But the thing is that you must be very perfect goal oriented about it. Documentation has to be perfect. Keeping the data, having the photographs, having the record taken. We are normally lazy in our practice about keeping the data properly. It is the only thing what research matters is about maintaining data and analyzing it. So that's where we lack. We do not maintain our data properly, and we do not put enough time to analyze it, and don't set goals about it. So if you can do that, you can do small research even in private practice. You can select one goal and work on it. Like what Dr. Bhaviskar did about scorpion bite. He decided and he went ahead and he devised an absolutely wonderful method to resuscitate those patients.
So in a private practice, suppose a lot of cases, they are coming interesting cases. So if you are not having the time as being a doctor, you can keep a data operator or someone with you. You can pay for them and you can keep a data. Only what you have to do that is you have to compile and you have to publish that. But more important thing is that ethical approval is also required when you are producing the data also. So that is, I think we tried in last year, that is our Doctor Society, that the Indian Medical Association can with the joint venture with the institute where the research is going on. With such ethical committee, they can, ethical approval if they can take. So it's becomes very easy for the private practitioners also. So such a doctor's team can take a lead and they can do it. Sometimes like in a PhD also, when people go with a PhD, At the time of the PhD research, they appoint few people from the different, from advocate and social worker and all those things, and they get approved their PhD dissertation and they can appear. The same thing we can do here also. But here's a team, this such a committee, we can go with that and we can submit that one. Even if government sector or some institute is ready to go with the joint venture, that will be very useful for the society.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, please.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Ma'am, my question is to you. Ma'am, you said you were not interested that much to enter in medicine. Mine is also same case. So, ma'am, how you just develop interest in it?
See, the thing is that accept the situation as they are. If we are not going to accept, then leave this one, go for the other things. That is when, this is the time. Nowadays, bond is there, so you cannot leave this MBBS and PG. My time, there was choice. But when I enter, I accepted, I gave 100%. This is your nature. So it's same thing I told that give 100% whatever you're doing. And I was getting a success in my life. I never grumble for this. But whatever I do 100%. That is the thing. I was not interested. In biology, I got less mark than the mathematics. I was not having a single tuition in 10th, 11th, 12th, 9th, nothing. Only thing is that I won't say that I was very clever. Like a sir, I was not. But my efforts. भगवान ने बुद्धि दी है, लेकिन बुद्धि को कुछ करेंगे नहीं, नर्चन नहीं करेंगे, it is useless. So I got MBBS. In that, I gave my 100%. Whatever I do, now also whatever I do, don't say, some people say that, Agrawal madam like administration. I don't like administration. But when work come to me, I do 100%. Yes. That is them. Being an anesthesiologist now, I choose anesthesia. I'm doing 100% if I love anesthesia. And more important thing is that, like in MBBS don't like, suppose you anatomy don't like, or physiology don't like. So what we do in exam also, if anatomy don't like, we go with only physiology and biochemistry, I keep anatomy on the back side. Now start doing opposite. Whenever anatomy book comes up, say, I love anatomy, and start reading that one. One day you will have interest in that. That is there.
You don't like something, what do you do? What do you do?
Sir, just study.
You quit?
No, sir.
Suppose you are not able to quit. Suppose now I'm sitting here. Even if I don't like, I have to sit here.
We hope that's not the case, sir.
So you have to, but I sincerely advise you, maybe you don't like to become a doctor, but since you entered, so what I would suggest you, as madam told, whatever you do, try to justify and try to do the best. So till MBBS, you finish your MBBS, you will be graduate, fine. Then the whole world is open. You can become IAS officer, you can become politician, you can become whatever you want. But you have to finish MBBS because you have entered. If you leave it, you'll be covered. If you leave this, you cannot follow anything in life. So whatever you take, you finish. That is the message I want to give all of you.
Thank you, sir. Hello.
Again, important thing that if you're having an MBBS degree and if you're going to become an IAS officer or something else, that is good for you.
देख भाई तेरी सिचुएशन अरेंज मैरिज जैसी है अब एक तो तू उससे एडजस्ट कर ले, नहीं तो उससे अपने जैसा बना ले, यही तेरे पास है। तो अगर एमबीबीएस को आया है तो सर ने जैसा कहा तुझे कंप्लीट करना पड़ेगा, और बहुत नोबल फील्ड है यार, तू काम कर, सिर्फ तू देख, तू क्लिनिक्स अटेंड कर, ज्यादा से ज्यादा क्लिनिक्स अटेंड कर, क्लिनिक में जा। थियोरेटिकल इट्स ओके यार, मैं बोला ना पहले 50 ओके ठीक है, 85 है ना अभी, क्या बढ़ गया है? 85 है, नहीं 35 था यार 50 को गया आफ्टर 12th, तो 50 ठीक है, उतना ही जा। लेकिन जब तू क्लिनिकल काम ज्यादा करेगा ना, तेरा इंटरेस्ट अपने आप बढ़ जाएगा, क्योंकि वो बहुत नोबल नोबल प्रोफेशन है यार। तू तेरा 100% दे उसमें। उसमें आज तेरे माँ बाप तेरे पास एक डॉक्टर की हैसियत से देख रही है, तो तेरा भी कुछ दायित्व बनता है, तू बन जा, तू कुछ तो कर। और उसमें इंटरेस्ट बढ़ाने के लिए कुछ ऐसा ज्यादा नहीं करना पड़ता, जस्ट यू हैव टू बी सिंसियर एंड नॉलेज बढ़ा अपना, वक्त दे फील्ड के लिए, तो अपने आप तुझे अच्छा लगने लगेगा।
See, most important thing is that be a grateful. Grateful first, but you got a human life. Second, be grateful that you have an intellect, God given. Being grateful for your family that they put in MBBS, and grateful that you getting a chance to serve the society, the poor people suffering. If you are grateful, then you can manage anything.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Mike, please.
As ma'am and sir said, life of a doctor is very stressful and hectic. So what suggestion would you give to improve our social lives? Or is there a sacrifice we have to make?
See, doctor's life is not a stressful. When the stress is there, you should know the definition of the stress. The most important thing is that when you wanted to do the things and you're having a less energy and less time, then that creates the stress. If you're having a adequate time and energy, then there won't be the stress. Don't say life is just stressful. How you are taking your life. See, I'm also a doctor, I'm working, I don't have any stress. Even in emergency also, I don't have stress. I said, whenever emergency comes, people will call me and I will go further. Why should this in the morning, 8 o'clock, today I'm on emergency on call, today I'm emergency call, today I'm emergency call, 24th I'm going to do that one. And there may not be an emergency. Right? Do you understand?
Tension लेने का नहीं देने का. So stressful life. See, if we discuss that doctors are under a lot of stress. Just imagine any IT person or anybody in life now. Everybody is so busy. 5 years back, 10 years back, probably it was true for doctors, but now it is true for everybody. Everybody is doing multitasking. Some teacher is doing 6 to 10 job after his school, and he tries to earn more. Everybody is busy. Everybody is under stress. So tension लेने का नहीं, tension देने का बस. That is the only formula.
And there are two types of stresses: eustress and distress. Okay. Now you convert your distress into eustress so that you get motivated. And doctor होना अलग बात है और डॉक्टरी करना अलग बात है. समझ गए ना आप? तो कॉलेज में डॉक्टर होना सिखाते हैं. डॉक्टर ये तुम बाद में जब बाहर पढ़ोगे तब सीख जाओगे. अब as soon as you become a doctor, become a social doctor. सिर्फ बिजनेस के लिए और पैसा कमाने के लिए डॉक्टरी मत करो. Take it as a challenge, be a social doctor, mix with the society, work for the society, and you will enjoy the fruits. You will become famous, you will be honored, you will be respected everywhere, and then you will feel special as a doctor.
Thank you, sir. Next, please.
Good evening, everyone. So my question was that in future, we'll be seeing a lot of our patients dying in front of us. But at the same time, we have to give assurance to their families that everything will be all right. So how are we supposed to do that?
See, normally say when people like people with grade 3, grade 4 cancers come to us or terminal cases come to Amjad, see, we explain the real situation to them. Never try to give guarantees. Okay. Life is not about guarantee. Life is about doing honest work to save that life. You must show to them and assure them that you are trying to do everything that is possible honestly to the best extent possible. Okay. But you can never assure anybody anything. I can give you a guarantee for this pen, but there's no guarantee that I will reach from here to my house in next few hours. There's no guarantee. So never talk about guarantees. You talk about assurances in an honest way and giving honest services.
Sometimes you probably have to be slightly diplomatic when you talk to the relatives. In front of what relatives, what to talk, that also comes by experience. Suppose, as sir said, somebody is in terminal stage, of course, is dying. You have to be first good actor to say that probably we are going to save him, we will try. But then some of those relatives should clearly know that patient is going to die. At least somebody to keep yourself clear. But you have to be diplomatic enough to talk in front of so many relatives at one time that is going to die, nothing can happen. So that way it is, because unfortunately we are dealing with humans, we are not dealing with machines. So we have to understand the emotions of the person sitting in front of you and try to modify your words rather than intention. You understand? So this will you learn only, as you said, once you become doctor, you do doctorate rather than only becoming doctor. Once you start practicing, you will learn this.
What I do that is very important. My experience, I'm telling you that when we manage a patient in a ICUs, like in trauma ICU, surgical, critical patients, sometimes we know that this patient is 99% is going to die, but we take a chance that to resuscitate everything. We have to explain everything. Patients relative comes, पण बरा होईल ना patient. तो क्रिटिकल पेशंट आपण सांगू शकत नाही डॉक्टर पण वाचेल ना ते रिपीटेडली दे आर सेम थिंग्स देन व्हॉट आय डू बघा मला जेवढं करायचं मला जेवढं तर ते पूर्ण 100% आणि तुमच्या पेशंटला हे करणार ते करणार सगळं करणार पण 1% देवाच्या हातात आहे माझ्या हातात 100% नाही मी आता तुमच्याशी बोलते आहेत बाहेर गेल्यानंतर मला पण माहिती नाही माझे दिवस किती आहेत आय एक्सप्लेन दॅट पण डायरेक्टली आपण सर्वांना बोलू शकत नाही तुमचा पेशंट मरणारच आहे तर मला काय विचारू नका वी कॅन डू दॅट वन सिरियस आहे वाचण्याची शक्यता कमी वाटते पण आपण सगळं करूया सगळं देऊया प्रयत्न करूया 1% द्यावं तर सोडून टाकू दॅट इज यू आर सपोज टू कम्युनिकेट
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Due to constraint of time, we would ask the further questions to be so during the snack time, can we do that? Okay. So thank you everyone and thank you panelists for joining us today.
I request all the panelists to please be seated. So please be seated. Thank you, sir. As Dr. Kumtekar sir said, every shortcut will cut you short. That's something that rings true for every field and not just for our medical field. Dr. Amjad sir mentioned that a medical professional needs to be multitasker and keep his plan flexible and adaptable to the circumstances, yet the core principles should remain a constant. Dr. Yuvraj sir shed light on the ever-troubling question for medicos like us, if we should prepare for PG NEET or set up a private medical practice. Then he went on to enumerate the qualities that are to be expected in a general practitioner: to be a good listener, to apply his knowledge reflexly, and to be a good actor along with a good doctor. Dr. Pushpa Agrawal ma'am taught us how not to be let down by our stress or let stress you down and your expectations when your expectations do not meet up your reality.
Thank you, sirs. Thank you, ma'am, for your experiences and guidance. Will definitely help us plan better and make wise choices. I now request Dr. Tirankar ma'am to please come up on the dais to felicitate our esteemed panelists.
I request Dr. Tirankar ma'am to felicitate Dr. Pushpa Agrawal ma'am.
Madam and myself were together, the same batch. I'm very glad today.
I request Dr. Tirankar ma'am to please felicitate Dr. Kumthekar sir. I request Dr. Tirankar ma'am to please felicitate Dr. Amjad sir. I request Dr. Tirankar ma'am to please facilitate Dr. Mani sir.
As it is rightly said, research is to see what everybody else has seen and to think what nobody else has thought. I now conclude today's session. Snacks have been arranged. I request everyone to enjoy your snacks before you leave the venue. Thank you, everyone. Looking forward to see you all again tomorrow. Everyone, please be seated. Yes, ma'am.
Tomorrow's session will begin at 8 o'clock. Everyone is requested to please be present on time.
And you have to show your food QRs again, and please go one by one. Don't overcrowd there. Thank you.
Thank you.